to hide the door. It's nothing to do with you.
Excuse me, I have to be at the desk.
I love the way that Deborah Blake arrived. The excitement that knows no bounds. Now, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you're going, ooh. No, all right, you're probably not, because you're doing stuff. But if you did go, ooh, you wouldn't be wrong. New studio layout. We're excited. I'm excited. I just said...
It's nice and cosy, I think.
I just said yes, and I did absolutely sod all towards it. I have to say big thanks to Phil Dave, who is sitting opposite me.
Oh, hi.
James Blake, who I think you can now see at long last.
The first time on Men's Radio.
No. We could see like usually the back of your head or your stuff, but now, James.
Oh, hang on a sec. We need to see. We actually need to see it front on for the first time.
We've never seen it.
We've never seen.
Okay.
What,
Boy Wonder producer.
Like?
No, Boy Wonder producer rocking the decks.
There he is.
Hey, we got the bolts.
There we are. And I'm what's left of Russ Kane. Now, forgive me, I couldn't sleep. Got up at 6, and I thought, you know what? Perfect opportunity to start watching The Irishman, the Marty Scorsese masterpiece. And yeah, I started watching it, and I so could have still been watching it. I had to switch it off and tear myself away from it.
Did you go to the movies at 6 o'clock in the morning?
No, I was in the living room at 6 o'clock. I couldn't sleep. I gave up. I thought there's no point. I had a horrible nightmare, and I woke up, and that was it. So welcome along to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk. We're on a bit of a high today. James, a tad more in my... Phil, you're the...
I see.
Thrilled.
No problem at all. I've just got to find which headphone. We've redesigned the studio.
It'll be the one somewhere.
I think you're that one.
It'll be that one. So there we are. So, James, now that you're on TV and radio, this iron that I've been talking about since January is becoming an essential. It's not an option, it's an essential.
No longer can I hide behind
you can't
at the back
hide
of the studio
looking like a schlock. No, now you have to look nice. Now, Phil always looks sensationally marvellous. That's his trademark. His hair and his clothes are his trademark. Not so much with James. I'd like to think that James's mechanical dexterity... I'm making that up to big him up, basically. That's it. It's been a hell of a week.
Well, I would stress, actually, that James is actually probably better suited, that he doesn't actually need to go to silly lengths that I go to actually get people to even notice him. Because I think they notice him.
Oh, that's putting yourself down.
No, I know.
Why are you putting yourself down like that? By the way, it's weird facing you.
It really is, actually, yes. I'm not sure how I'm going to survive 3 hours.
I don't think you're going to like it. I think you're going to find it vaightly intimidating.
It seems almost very confrontational.
It is confrontational. Phil and I's relationship for the last 8,000 years has been confrontational. To put it mildly.
It's a love-hate relationship. He loves to annoy me, and I hate him for it.
That's it. We've got an action-packed show for you this week. Very interesting guest. We are going into uncharted territory. It's going to be a little bit dangerous. It's going to be a little bit edgy. I'm not quite sure how it's all going to pan out. I got to be absolutely honest with you. I'm not. And the reason I'm not quite sure how it's all going to pan out, because we're getting quite potentially volatile people into the studio. I don't mean Phil, James, and
No, for
myself.
once you actually don't mean
No, I
me.
don't mean us at all. I mean the guests we have lined up. I'm kind of hoping it's going to be okay. Another part of me is kind of hoping it's all going to explode because it's good radio. But we're in it's a reasonably confined space, and I don't want to get too physical about the whole damn thing.
New studio, new experiences. Here we go.
Did you just make that up?
I did.
That's terrific. You're on fire straight away.
It's because I'm...
He's off again.
It's happening. So, Monday was a huge day for men's radio station and women's radio station, and I want to congratulate Phil and James.
I didn't really do anything, but thank you. On the other hand, you were like a trooper. Interview after interview on Monday.
Well, it was weird. We'll set the scene so it gives some kind of context, because otherwise everyone's going, I don't know what they're talking about Monday. Will they go out for lunch or something? Monday, we were the media partners of an event called This Can Happen 2019. Only the second year that it's been held, right? 1,000 guests, 1,000 delegates. It was an all-day conference with speaker after speaker. 1,000. And if you're thinking, I bet it was free, but each ticket... Wait for this. Each ticket was £736. Yeah. Not a typo, not a speecho. 736 quid to come to this event. It was the business. Brilliant speakers. And we were there en masse, the whole team, including new members of the team. And we set up as if we were the radio studio, replicated the studio there. At the Queen Elizabeth, what's it called? Conference Hall, Event Hall?
It's actually the Queen Elizabeth II Centre.
Centre. Okay, well, it's just off Parliament Square. Gorgeous views. We had the views where we were in the corner were stunning because we were looking over Westminster Cathedral. It was beautiful.
How nice would it have been to actually have it so the studios are set up there permanently? So on Facebook Live, our backdrop is Westminster Abbey. That would be stunning. But then again, I think no one would actually watch.
And the Tower Big Ben, the rosy red cheeks of the little children. Anyway,
Not quite.
Okay, So we were there,
I don't know
and
either.
all of us. So I was up at 5. I met James at the cafe around the corner at 6 in the morning.
That's a lion.
The shining beacon.
It was like a shiny beacon. We both went, oh, thank God that's open. So we saw the guys there, set ourselves up, and we were set up by about 7:15 or so. We got there for 7:15. Set up by 8, and I'm praying, but I didn't say to any of the team. I said, I'm really praying. Oh, man, I hope someone comes and talks to us. First person came over to talk to us at 8:15, right? 6 o'clock, I got off my backside. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was just so exciting to be part of that. So exciting to see that level of enthusiasm, that level of engagement, and people just got it. You know,
And
that's
also,
what
I would
love.
suggest as well that what was quite peculiar for me was that it's the first time I've genuinely felt change in the air. It's the only way I can describe it, because everyone there it was like being at the birth of philosophy or birth of revolution.
Explain, Philip, what I know exactly what you mean, but listeners won't. So.
No. So what I would say is that because we're surrounded by so many individuals who share a very simple, yet one would suggest common sense belief of how life in the workplace desperately needs to change for so many people, it almost felt as if that change could actually happen. You know the old adage, power in numbers? Well, there were so many individuals there that it was enough, I believe, to actually see that change implemented.
And it wasn't just the numbers, because these are major influencers, they're CEOs, they're COOs. These are the people who effect change, and that's what was exciting about it. It's about mental health in the workplace, and I've been trailing this for some weeks now, but certainly in 2020 Men's Radio Station in conjunction with Women's Radio Station will be having this as one of our big platforms, mental health in the workplace. In essence, wherever, if you worked in a motorbike repair shop with 8 people, or if you work for, GlaxoSmithKline or whoever it might be, with 20,000 people in the headquarters, you'd make sure that you had a first aid kit, and every floor presumably would have a fire extinguisher. Those are given. Those are tacitly understood. So if you had somebody having an accident, it would be dealt with. And the idea is to move the fact that if someone has mental health problems, that they should be looked after just the same way as if they had a physical problem. I think in a nutshell, that's kind of it. So the old adage of, well, I'm paying you a salary, you leave your problems at the front door, you come and do your day's work, then you can bugger off home and sort yourself out. But while you're at work, you leave your problems at home. That belongs in the kind of 19th century. That's no longer
now you see, this is where potentially you and I disagree slightly, is that I believe that belongs in the quote 19th century as long as the individual wants it to. So for me, I would say that any issues that I have, work could be an escapism, and if I want to leave the work, sorry, I beg your pardon, if I want to leave the problems, not if I want to leave the work. I'm sorry, any of my bosses listening to this, that was not a fraudulent slip. I don't want to listen.
I can hear.
I don't want to leave work.
No,
but
good.
If I wanted...
Got another 3 hours ahead of us, that would be really embarrassing.
Yeah, I'll see you later. If I wanted to leave problems at the proverbial door, then I would say that actually work can be escapism for many, and it's important that it's only if the individual wants to leave.
All right, let me just lay out my stall, as they say. I have always found work to be my salvation. And when I've gone through serious traumas, whatever it may be, I just throw myself into my work. That's how I survive, thrive, and enjoy. But it's difficult, but it's not for everybody. It's simply not.
No, and that's the whole point. It should be to the individual's needs. It should be.
All right, well then turn it on its head a little bit. If somebody really is struggling, then that shouldn't be detrimental to them keeping their place within work.
If someone is really struggling, why couldn't the workplace offer to help?
They are. That's where it's moving to.
That's what I'm saying. That's where it's moving to. But I'm just saying, contrary to what Phil's saying, it should be if they want it to. But why couldn't someone still?
But then
reach
at
out
the same time,
they can.
Then at the same time, okay. Here's a thought. I'm not wanting to throw in an old spanner, but if you were to say that someone has a broken leg, it's not up to the workplace to necessarily mend that broken leg or to put it in plaster, is it?
No, but the workplace would say, Phil, come back when you can walk.
Oh, but don't they have to provide accessibility now? The workplaces?
But that's not for the individual. That's law. That's not just a case of catering for an individual's needs. That's more a blanket reason that any new buildings have to be accessible.
Yeah, I think let's just take your broken leg analogy. In the old days, say, well, you're no good to me. Goodbye. And you go, but I got a broken leg, it's not my fault. And I go, it's not my fault that you can't work on the shop floor. Let's just say, I don't know, we're manufacturing widgets or something like that. In other words, it's not a desk job. Broken leg with a desk, you can kind of hobble in and you can sit there. But say you got to do something physical. I presume there's factories left somewhere. It's not all robots, I hope. And so that would be the old thing. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Dave. That's it. And you go, but I got a broken leg. Well, that's not my problem. I got widgets to make, and Steve up the road can take your job. Boom. Well, that's kind of gone. But if you came in and you've got serious mental issues, or serious depression, or whatever it might be, then it's the same kind of thing.
But I still find it hard to believe that someone would just even, whenever it was, turn around and just say, right, you've got whatever problems you've got, that's it, bye-bye. I think those days are gone regardless if it's mental or physical,
all right,
personally.
Let's take it into the city area. Let's take it into the financial arena. If you're responsible for millions, sometimes billions of pounds of transaction, and it's your responsibility, there is a thought, and that was the current thought that was the past thought in the city, that with such enormous funds at stake, you couldn't be trusted to do your job. That would be their fear, because the ramifications would go right the way to the top.
But is it unreasonable to be worried about billions of pounds worth of business?
No, of course it's not. It's not unreasonable. Why would it be unreasonable? That's the point.
If they were to boot someone out,
they would. Well, they would argue we can't have this person. They could be potentially a loose cannon. We've got this is our firm's reputation. You live or fall by your reputation. And Fred Smith, on the trading floor, is clearly suffering. We better take him out. Better remove him.
But isn't the truth that some people are more suited to some jobs than others?
Well, that's not the same thing, is it?
Well, no, it is.
That's not the same argument.
It is. If someone has a condition, an ailment that potentially would prevent them from doing the job as well as somebody else, why would someone take that person on or indeed keep them employed?
This is a whole... I don't know what the hell that was.
I believe it is raining soundproofing.
Oh, soundproofing is falling down.
That's all right.
That's God frowning on you, Phil, Dave.
Well, quite.
God saying, shut up.
But,
all right,
let's take the analogy.
Let's take the analogy and let's just break it down. If someone's got a bad back, slip disc, a weak back, and they go into the building trade, let us supposition they go in the building trade, that is going to be a no-no.
I've just watched that back on Facebook. It's quite effective, actually, the soundproofing.
I just thought someone was throwing something at James. Just saving time.
Don't worry, we'll try and repair that during the outbreak.
Yeah, right. Of course we will. I said no one ever. All right. What I'm saying is this. You go into the building trade, you're lugging heavy loads, right? Bricks, whatever, metal, whatever it is. You got a bad back. That's not the job for you. That's ridiculous. That's just going to be hopeless. And there's no reason if you go to and if you apply for the job and you got a bad back and you're always going to have trouble with that is not the job for you. I understand that. I can take that on board. Mental health is a different thing.
But is it though? We're saying we want mental health and physical health to be treated the same.
That's what they're aiming for.
Right, so if it is to be treated the same, then there's a very strong argument to be had that would suggest that if one's either mental or physical ability would impact the way that someone could do a job properly compared to someone else who maybe doesn't have that particular mental or physical ailment, well then it stands to reason that the person who doesn't have should be the one to get the job. It doesn't mean to say that the person who's got a mental or a physical ailment is not capable of doing another job that is better suited to them. But it is at the same time a dilemma. And I'm saying that if you, quite rightly, want mental and physical health to be on a par, then it cuts both ways.
I think with any... it's a very clever argument, so I'm beginning to hate you.
Thanks.
I think with anything where
What do you mean beginning to hate me? You've been hating me for about 10 plus years. Anyway...
No, it's gone from a mild irritation.
Fine.
The needle's veering towards... I think when you're pushing new boundaries... and the rules aren't clear, and in many ways you are making those rules as you go along, there's going to be loads and loads of questions. Well, as with all and these things will take time. But we're not talking this is going to happen in 2 years.
But thanks to the conference on Monday, we know this can happen.
This,
Hey-o. I saw what you did there.
Thanks.
This can happen. It's amazing. One woman called Zoe Sinclair came up with this, and boom. She had
royalty there in the first year.
First year, they reach out somehow. She explained how, and frankly, I forgot. But it was quite tangential. And Prince William turned up. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, he didn't have to be passing. And he turned up and spoke, which I think is, for year one for a brand new conference is great. And then year two, apart from everybody else and the great and the good, Melanie Brown from the Spice Girls.
Can't say fairer than that.
Not quite. Prince William, Mel B.
And Russ Kane from Men's Radio Station.
Well, I didn't speak.
No, he wasn't year one, though.
You did a lot of speaking. You want to speak up?
Oh, I did. We were absolutely flooded. And we're
now, look, can we say hello to Amandeep, who's listening on Facebook?
Yes, we can. Amandeep, hello. And thank you so much for joining us.
He's actually joining in the conversation, which we love. And please do, if you are either watching or listening along, we do love it if you join in.
Give a shout out how everyone does it.
Absolutely. It's terribly simple. The best way to do this is to give us a call. You call us on 0203 290 4411 or on social media. You can find us at facebook.com/Men's Radio STN.
Why are you smiling at me? What have I done there?
Because I know what's coming.
No, you don't.
And then, why have you changed it?
No,
please say
you've
changed it.
I haven't changed it.
Bother. Okay. And then, of course, you could always contact
yesterday. I had a digital spat with him yesterday.
Oh dear! What did he finally admit?
No
jingle today.
A political disagreement.
Oh, well, in that case, I'd suggest no fees today.
Well,
anyway, right there we go. Well, you know.
I bought him lunch.
I see. Here was me thinking it works on royalties.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
That's going to happen.
Amandeep says on Facebook, and if you want to comment on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Men's Radio STN. And whilst we're on the subject, hello to everyone watching on Facebook. If you want to speak to us on Twitter or on Instagram, then you can always go to @Men's Radio STN, and that's the way you do that.
STN being short for station. All of you know that, but I'm just adding in case you thought, what the hell's STN?
Absolutely. The one time I don't do it, you add it very good.
Well, yeah, you got to be nice.
Thank you.
Got to be nice.
Anyway, Amandeep says that work and life, this is referring back to what we were saying about people going to work as escapism.
Mm-hmm.
He says that work and life is a balance, and balance is different for everyone. So,
that's it?
Yeah.
That's what he said?
I think it's to the point.
He also said that maybe it's the individual who defines the balance.
Hang on, why has James got more than you? What is that?
Because James replied to him, and he's got a reply.
I do have a reply. So
I'll get you to.
He says maybe it's the individual to define the balance in the workplace. It's not for the workplace to set it. We need to have a compassion work culture is what we need.
Oh, compassion. Oh, that's good. I like that.
That was Amandeep, so thank you very much.
Well done, Amandeep. Compassion work culture. It's good.
I agree.
I like that.
What do you think of duvet days? Have you heard of this phenomenon?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous.
I think it's a cover up.
Yay! Duvet days, just when somebody wants to watch, Piers Morgan and then Cash,
Lorraine Kelly,
and then she's Polish, and then
yes.
What? Cash in the Attic. You Can Flog It, and people.
Cash in the Attic. What century are you living in?
I have no idea.
That got axed ages ago.
Well, I don't watch ever daytime TV. In fact,
Homes
I don't
Under
watch.
the Hammer is where it's
Is it really?
Love Homes Under the Hammer.
Why?
Why?
Yeah,
it's inspirational. Okay. Reminds me I don't have money.
How do you think Phil figured out how to redesign the studio so well?
What, from Homes Under the Hammer? I thought you are kind of the Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen of radio.
Thanks.
I'm not sure that's a compliment.
I don't think it is either. I'm rolling with it.
I had dinner with him once. His wife was very charming.
Did any of his hair go in the food?
No.
Which might be rich coming from me.
It's a running gag. No, I think I met him twice, and his wife was very nice. We'll leave it at that.
To get back to my point, though, the whole point.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot you were talking.
What?
It's hard. The whole idea behind a duvet day is that if you're not having a particularly strong day, it's there for you to take a break.
What, sulk?
Well,
what is a strong day, mate?
If you're suffering, if you're having a particularly bad day, you're dealing with your depression, your anxiety, if you're finding it particularly hard to get out of the house, it's supposed to be for that.
Like, for example, if I was completely stuck into Martin Scorsese's The Irishman and thought, I really want to finish this movie.
I don't think it's quite...
Is that a duvet day?
No, I don't think... I mean, look, obviously that's what it gets construed for. But
I'm box setting Love Island.
Yeah,
I can't pop into work today.
I need to finish this season of The Sopranos.
I'm having my eyebrows threaded. I can't be asked to turn up at the factory.
Then that's something that's totally different. That's just laziness. If someone can't be bothered to go off their backside, well, then to hell with them.
Precisely.
But it's more about...
I'm saying it because, I'm a deeply cynical person. But, if you're going to...
No.
I who would have thought. But if you're making this seismic shift, guys, if you're making this seismic shift, there will be loads of people going, I don't think so. Really? Another excuse, another layer of stuff that I've got to get through. I'm not knee-deep in paperwork. I'm running a small business here. Because there is a huge disparity. And this is going to be a theme which I know is going to bite everybody, and I know will come up time and time again. There is a massive disparity between a small company. By small in today's standards, that's between 1 employee and 250 employees. Makes us gigantic. Right, so between 1 and 250, and above that, right? And Steve, who does the therapy show, I should know. What's it called?
Yes.
The therapy show with Bernadette, and so he and I were having a very interesting conversation.
Sorry, do you run this place?
I do, but I I do run this place, but I'm not a detail guy.
Don't you worry about it. Hello, Steve, if that's your name.
It is Steve. Stephen Bernadette. Yeah. I don't have to get into the details of everything. I'm not.
He was wearing. I have to say, on the day of the event, he was wearing an amazing suit. Maybe upstaging some of the garms that I've seen the great Phil Dave wear.
Oh no!
How dare you?
Oh Christ!
Get out!
Now he's going to sulk. Can I make the point I was going to make? Or was it all about Phil?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all about Phil. The point was this: that it's easier in many ways for a huge corporation because they have the funding, because they have massive HR departments and all the rest of it. It's kind of easier for them to tick those boxes and start to do that. But the smaller firm, it's quite difficult. But what a smaller firm has, and I would love to think that we have it, and please don't be sarcastic, for once, at Men's Radio Station, Women's Radio Station.
Me, sarcastic? Nah.
No, never. Or turn up in a rather flamboyant scarf. Is a family atmosphere. Well, for you, it's not that flamboyant. The knot's a little flamboyant.
I also
looks like
think
a prayer shawl.
It
does.
Just walk into the synagogue, I'm well away.
It doesn't even have to change.
I also think for a smaller company, the impact of having someone off on a sick day
is massive.
A lot bigger than a larger company.
Unless it's you.
Unless it's me.
Unless it's you, because we don't care. But otherwise,
some
of us care. Your mum will care. Yeah. Could you stop doing that? This is ridiculous. Jeez.
I'm not having anyone offended by this. I am Jewish, and don't start. I'm not wanting any letters, thank you.
No one's going to write. I don't know. Corbyn might write.
We've never given out the address, so I don't know how they'll write.
Corbyn's going to write. He'll write to you, saying he's always loved you, secretly.
Now, we're in the purdah period. Right.
We're not yet. We're not in the. We're not in the purdah. No. What Phil means is at the BBC, and No, they're not. We're not in the purdah period. We haven't signed up to that.
It's next month, isn't it?
We haven't signed up to that. I think from December you can't do it. I don't think... What it is, explain...
Let me put it this way.
Explain.
All right, so purdah period is the run-up.
It's the proper term, by
It's
the
the
way.
terminology in the run-up to a general election or a big vote, such a referendum or something along those lines. And what it means is that if you work in a position of influence, whether that be in broadcasting, whether that be in literature, paper, whatever it is, you are not supposed to influence the vote. Report on it how you will. So in other words, if you're going to talk about something that has happened, say, for example, all of the scandals surrounding Jeremy Corbyn with not necessarily apologising to the Jewish community, that obviously happened quite recently on the BBC when he was speaking to Andrew Neil. You can report on that, that's fine. But what you can't do is try and influence how people would vote off the back of that. So that is what a purdah period is. And technically speaking, in the run-up to the election now, we've still got another 2 weeks of it. We are, as it were, in a purdah period.
I get that. So at the BBC, where Phil and I also frequent,
haunt, annoy, and all the above.
All the above. Basically, if you make a statement, you would have to immediately balance that. So if you said, well, I don't even have to give an example. You get exactly what I'm saying. You have to balance that. Those are the rules of engagement. But we haven't got any of those here. That's the main thing. So I will.
Yes, but I'm still gainfully employed by someone.
No. Phil runs a tight ship with that. You are listening to Men's Radio Station. We're coming at you 100% live from the centre of London, right here in Covent Garden. Russ Kane with Phil Dave, and rocking the decks, James Blake, and we'll be introducing our first guest very shortly.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's radio station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's radio station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental wealth and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
And we're back, and thank you, Phil. If you wonder why Phil, he wasn't going behind the screen to change. It wasn't like he was in John Lewis or Fenwick.
I want to be alone.
He's just very fussy. You know what it's like. And thank you. This is Men's Radio Station, coming at you live from the centre of London, as I always say, in Covent Garden, which was heaving.
May I just suggest, actually, there's not one other radio station where you'll find a member of the on-air team who are prepared to repair the studio.
Well, that's because of the unions. Leave your nose alone. That's because of the... That's just.
Excuse me, I've got an itch.
Well, it didn't look like an itch. It looked like you were doing something else, and frankly, it's off-putting. Now I've got to sit right opposite you. It's put me off. Right, our first guest. A man I have...
Can't even scratch your nose.
Could you shut up now, please?
No.
We've got in the presence of greatness. Well, we're in the presence of...
I know. I've been telling you that for ages.
No. God, you're irritating. Richard Vero.
Good morning.
Welcome. You need the mic closer to you, Governor. Now, let's just contextualise this. Richard and I, bizarrely, although we haven't seen each other since, like, forever, we're at school together. And
Good God, what a memory.
It's a...
quite an interesting memory, actually.
We were worried at the time Hitler was massing on the Polish border. Who knew? Anyway, so Richard Vero and I were Richard Wright brothers had just flown. It was great, and it all led on. Oh look, James's mum has arrived.
Lady B has arrived. Give a wave, Lady B. There you go.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, bye. Thanks a lot.
This was supposed to be
bye
the
now.
of the screen.
Cheerio. Bye. Thanks for dropping by. Anyway, so Richard and I were at school together.
So sorry, Richard. It's probably much more chaotic than this.
She's irritating, but she's great, and she's cheap. And that is the most important thing.
The whole point of the screen was that I could get stuff from the screen.
Yeah, but your mother's arrived... Richard, bear with me a second.
I'm fine.
James's mother has arrived as a go-go. I don't know what. I think she's on her way to a 60s revival go-go
We
dancers.
can start singing again.
No, you're not going to start singing again. You're not.
60s were a great period.
It was a fun time, and it's good that Deborah Blake has totally still embraced that look, the back-combed hair, the whole thing. Anyway, it's James's mum, and it explains, to be honest, so much. Now, Richard, you we were at school together. I haven't seen you like for a billion years, and I think we did different things at school. What were you on? I can't remember. You went on the sciences or the classics? What were you on?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Were you on the sciences or the classics?
Oh, neither. I was a geography man.
Oh, precisely. That's why I never saw
geography and maths with statistics and economics.
God, right? No wonder.
So, Richard, hang on a sec, because we've got a unique opportunity.
That's why
here,
I never ever saw. That's why I never saw you.
Absolutely, don't think this should go to waste.
No. I know where you're going.
What was Russell Kane like as a pupil?
Oh,
well, I wasn't in the same form, so I can't.
There we go. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Comment.
Thank you, Richard. You see, the thing about Dulwich Boys
Golden
is
opportunity wasted.
No, well, you see, the thing is, we get Nigel Farage in. You can ask him.
I'll text him, shall I?
Text Nigel. Say what was Russ like? When in the same year, it's okay. Now, Richard, you now live in a place. We had lunch the last time you were in England because you live in Germany. More weirdly, when you find out where, everyone's going to go, what? Colditz.
That's correct.
You live in the village of Colditz, as in the Colditz Castle.
Correct.
And tell us what you do there.
Well, I'm semi-retired nowadays, but I'm president of the Colditz Preservation Society,
right?
Where we look after the memorials and try and control the Saxon government on what they do with the castle regarding the prisoner of war camp, which they probably, don't mention the war, but I think they probably like to concentrate on the Saxon history of the castle rather than the wartime history for obvious reasons.
Can't imagine why that is, but anyway. And so you're president of this. It's presumably a pretty full-time, full-on job.
Well, I wouldn't say it was full-time, but it's nice. It's nice in the summer when we have lots of English tourists come to see the castle.
Is that so you can converse in English once more?
Yes, predominantly. And enjoy English culture, even though I'm not in England.
And how long have you lived out there?
I moved out there permanently around 2010.
All right, so it's not that long, but you were going sort of backwards and forwards and all of that.
I was still working in London.
Right, doing...
Accountancy, predominantly.
Yeah, so, of course, because of the maths thing. But that, and...
Well, it's good to see you never lost the accent, so that's something.
That's the thing.
Well, my children speak German with a Saxon accent and English with a London accent, which I'm quite proud of.
Oh, wow.
That's very bizarre.
What is apart from being a heavy metal rock band from the 80s, what is a Saxon accent? I don't know what that is.
Well,
how would you describe
it's
it?
sort of deeper and broader. It's like England, if you go to Birmingham or if you go to London or if you go to Liverpool, they have different accents.
Indeed.
And it's the same in Germany.
Don't. I see you're waiting to do the Phil Dave regional accent tour of the UK. It's not going to happen. No, just not have your tea. It's not going to happen.
Wouldn't dream of it, like.
There we go. Wales. We're starting in Wales, clearly. So now, that's not what you wanted to talk about, though, is it? No. Well, actually, there's one more thing I do want to talk about.
Okay, well, ask away.
Which is this. And I'm putting my hands in the hornet's nest. Here we go. I never, got to be a bit brave. There's stuff happening in Colditz you're not happy about. As particularly, are you?
Well, my personal...
No, not the personal side, the political side.
Well, in Colditz, yes, there's always things going on in Colditz. Next year is 75 years the relief of Colditz on April the 18th, so it's going to be busy.
Right.
Next year.
Okay. But you've had some incidents, but we could talk about them perhaps another time. But
well, yes, there's been German society is. I don't know whether I suppose you could say it's still certainly institutionally racist, maybe to a certain extent, and we do have in Colditz some rather right-wing people, put it that way.
Yeah, well, you're using the word right-wing, which wasn't what you said when we had lunch. And it was
no, well, I'm not sure what I should say on the radio.
Say
the truth.
Speak as you find is the best advice we can give.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean that what you say is factually accurate to some, but as long as you say you speak as you find, it's your opinion, it's what you've been led to believe.
We, for example, have 2 convicted neo-Nazis working on the local council.
Good Lord.
See, I told you it'd be interesting.
Which is
told you.
Welcome to the show.
Which is really quite, and well, it's not good in my point of view. I have spoken to the mayor about it, but he seems quite indifferent, seeing as he's sort of right wing as well.
You see, it always gets me when people in politics say, "Oh, someone's very right wing," and you go, "Have you been to Colditz recently?" Because there's right wing, and then there's really right wing, and where you're living, there's some very, very unpleasant goings on of the neo-Nazis.
Well, it's true, because there's a lot of, I mean, the right wing part of Germany is in the east and is in the Saxony, basically, is the heart of where the right wing people come from in Germany. In the sort of triangle, Dresden, Chemnitz, Leipzig. It's very much the heart of where neo-Nazism lives, unfortunately.
And it hasn't, I'm going to ask a dumb question, but you're the person to answer it because you live there and I've never been there. It hasn't died away.
No. I've had my social problems there, as you know, with divorces, my divorce, etc. I've actually been sitting at a meeting with a responsible person in the Leipziger Land Council who, when I was complaining about what they were doing, actually said to me, "If you don't like it here, go home. Go back to your country."
Yay! There you go. Boom.
Which was quite a shock at the time. Fortunately, I had a witness with me, but it's still there. Yes, it's still there, and they are quite happy to see people like me disappear if they could. I'm a little bit.
Well, Richard, we all feel like
loud.
that. Frank, I don't think it's got any. It's just. I think it's just your personality. I don't think it's a political statement.
No, that's true.
You know, I think I was like that at school. Now, one more thing is your dad did something great, which I've got to bring up only because I'm a petrol head, which was this was like seriously cool.
Sorry, prick up your ears.
That was the Joe Alton play, wasn't it? I'm talking about a Formula One racing helmets.
Yes, my father was a hat maker and helmet maker when I grew up, and he used to make in the 60s and in the 50s, prior to that, all the Grand Prix helmets for the racing drivers. Sterling Moss, Graham Hill, all from that era.
It's like
and there is actually a Colditz connection with that, believe it or not. Tony Rolt was a prisoner in Colditz. He was the engineer who designed the glider, which they actually flew off the roof about 10 years ago. And he won Le Mans in 1953 in a Jaguar C-Type, actually wearing a helmet made by my father.
It's terrific. I love that. It's a little bit of history, and it's just one of my particular passions.
Well, the great story about Tony Rolt is that he was an excellent engineer, and he designed a racing four-wheel drive system for Felday, which was Felday Ferguson. He worked for the tractor companies as well, and they made a Formula One car, which was late in its time. It was the last of one of the front-engined Formula One cars, which Stirling Moss actually won a Formula One race in at Alton Park. But he continued designing this four-wheel drive system for racing, which was then taken over by Audi, and he actually was involved in the design of the Audi Quattro system, which was used in all their racing cars that won Le Mans. So talk about going round in circles. There's a prisoner from Colditz in Germany actually working for a German company and being incredibly significant in their history.
Weird, huh?
So it's quite minor then, really, I suppose.
It's fate, isn't it? You never know which way it's going to go. Now, all of that is interesting, but although it's men's radio station, we don't chit-chat about stuff that we just happen to like, which might be cars or might not. You've had, and you're being brave, and I did preface some preamble saying, well, we're going into kind of uncharted territory here. So you've had personal problems that you wanted to talk about that you thought wouldn't be aired on many other radio stations, but this being men's radio station where men really talk. This is your opportunity. Just bear in mind, poor real lady, it says that the laws of libel and the laws of slander do apply. Okay, that's all I'm going to say to you.
No, I'll keep it.
That's my preamble to you.
I'll keep it brief and general. I separated from my wife in 2000, or my now ex-wife in 2012. And I had a breakdown. I spent 3 months in a clinic, and I had a long time problems with depression after that, and still, like everybody else with depression, you have a daily fight now and then, just to motivate yourself. It's very difficult, and historically, it's still going on with my ex-wife, who, even though she left me for another man, still, I think, likes to see me suffer, because it proves her point that she did the right thing. Although, of course, in my view, she didn't do the right thing.
Let's just wind back a little bit there. Had you suffered, because depression is a huge theme that we look at often here, because our whole ethos is mental health and well-being. Had you suffered from depression before your marital problems? Was that a lifelong thing?
No, it was purely since that point of time.
Since then? So not when you were at school or early?
No. Well, not to my knowledge, put it that way.
Okay. All right. So the marriage goes south, and it affected you so badly. This is why I really wanted to bring you in, because I know that you've flown in kind of to do the show, which I'm enormously grateful for. So it's not just like you popped in from Finchley or something. Coming in from Colditz is a big deal. So it affects you so badly, you essentially have a breakdown, would you call it?
Yeah, I was married for 20 years. My youngest son is severely disabled, which again was part of the pressure on me, and I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I found that very difficult to deal with.
That's very honest. But that's honest of you. Most people come on and want to be like heroes. I guess it is very hard.
Yeah, and also because of the ongoing problems with my ex-wife, I don't see my children very often, if at all, at the moment. There's some occasional contact, but very little.
And dumb question, but have you been able to come to terms with that, or is something that absolutely kills you?
You learn to shut it out and live with it. I know that probably sounds harsh, particularly with my children involved, but it is part of dealing with it. But yes, it does affect me.
See, Richard, I don't think there's right or wrongs, and you're beating yourself up here, but we're all in pretty uncharted territory, and one of the beauties we hope of MRS, Men's Radio Station, is that people listen and go, you know what, I feel like that, and it's good to hear somebody else feel like that. You've been honest, and you said that you had a heavily disabled child. You found that very difficult, which it is, rather than being heroic, and then saying that when something's taken away from you, you have to come to terms with it, I guess, is very true. I don't know what else you're supposed to do.
Well, it is difficult, and particularly, it happened to me when I was 60 years old. I'm 68 now, and you don't really expect to have to start again when you're 60 years old. I was just looking forward to my retirement.
Right, and then suddenly your world's upside down.
Yeah.
What? Now, we have a rule here. If you don't want to answer the question, don't feel embarrassed. Just say, I'd rather not go there. But when you started to get depressed and then you ended up in the clinic for 3 months, what were your symptoms, or how were you feeling, apart from obviously depressed?
I tried to commit suicide.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Wow.
And that was really the only way of keeping me together.
Did you, because we've had several guests who have done the same, and obviously didn't succeed, because otherwise that would be supernatural, did you just want the pain to go away, or did you actually did you want to die? There is a difference.
Well, is there a difference? I'm not sure.
There seems to be.
In retrospect now, dying wasn't the solution, but at the time, you'd see it as the only way of getting rid of the pain.
That's what I'm.
So there you go.
I mean.
That's exactly the point, isn't it?
That's my thing. It's not that you wanted to die, but a lot of people people who've come in here said it wasn't that they wanted to die; they wanted the pain to go away.
And arguably, the two different ways in which people think about taking their own life is one along those lines, when they are just so sore towards life, they're so hurt that dying is the only option. The other, of course, is that one could be so fed up of life and feeling as if they have no worth in this world, where, of course, every individual has their worth. It's just a case of finding it. But that is also another reason why a lot of people do take their own life.
Well, that is a difficulty. You need to find another direction and find more worth in what you do. And I've done that recently. I've started doing... I am basically an extrovert, although I became very introverted because of my problems. And now I've started to re-establish my true persona, if you like, and doing things again. I'm writing some children's books. I'm helping underprivileged children in the Philippines to get medicines. So I went there and met some lovely people. So yes, it does come back to you, but it's slow. It's not. There's no quick fix for depression.
So do you find writing therapeutic then? Do you?
I find it interesting. I'm doing children's books. They're picture books. I have a lovely artist who works with me, and it's instructional, it's educational, it's fun. They're happy books, and that helps me as well.
Dave says on Facebook, great point, guys. Perception of options is key, so one can only assume that he's referring to when we were talking about just now about when one considers taking their life. It's not just black and white as to, I want to end my life. There's probably many different reasons behind it, and they do believe that may be the only option for them. So
that's true. So you went, and was it the clinic was in Germany?
Sorry?
Where was the clinic? In Germany? Or
yes, in Zadras, which is next to Colditz.
God. I don't know why it's making me feel creeped out.
Look, actually, Colditz was a before it was a prisoner of war camp, was a hospital for mentally disabled people.
So not far, on the plus side, not far to travel. So, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Too soon?
Too soon.
Well, actually, as you're in the countryside in Germany, where there's the travel systems and are not the greatest, it's quite good to it. It was nearby.
Well, he built a load of
I could walk there.
You could handy. Go have a breakdown, go there. So, did that freak you out a bit? You know, you're in Germany and now you're in a clinic. Did you not?
It never crossed my mind, to be honest with you. I also think when you do have a breakdown, you can't say you think correctly. Your head is in such a jumble.
Do you remember any of the time when you were in the breakdown?
Yes. Probably the most memorable thing, I think, are the tears and the pain. You don't really remember what you were thinking about at the time, but you do remember that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the result. That's not the
surroundings and things like that, or you don't remember something as trivial?
It just doesn't make any difference. It's irrelevant, I think.
No, what I mean is, do you remember the surroundings? Of where you were, or is it that kind of thing just blend into insignificant?
I quite often drive past him nowadays, but yeah, that's otherwise I wouldn't know.
But that must be a great feeling of power, though, driving past it, saying I'm no longer there.
Yes, it is, but also it can remind you of not necessarily good things.
But you succeed. I think Phil's point is very valid, that you're on the outside and you're not on the inside. Oh, yes,
and you don't want to go back in. That's part of fighting. But it is, you do fight, and I still fight sometimes on a daily basis.
Why would you, and this is not as stupid as it may sound, why do you not want, I mean, there's nothing to fear from going in, is there, if it were to help you?
Yeah, it's, sometimes you do get almost to the point, you learn to judge for yourself and regulate for yourself how you feel, and you do get to points where you think, oh, this is really bad, maybe I might need some help. And if you get to that stage, then yes, I would go for help, because I know it does help.
And when you were in there, was it a mixture of drugs and therapy to get you back on track? Or
yes, antidepressants and therapies, lots of walking, lots of being with people. I mean, obviously there are other people in there.
What would you say was worse? Was it the point of thinking, I don't know what to do, I really want to sort this out on my own, or was it the actual going for help? What would you say was worse, the fear of getting help or the actual getting help?
I think the fear of not being able to come out the other side is the worst thing, because you can't at that point of time see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you like. You don't know where it's all going to end.
But I suppose what I'm getting at is that a lot of people, they dread the thought of having to ask somebody for help. So what I'm suggesting is that, is it worse not getting that help, or was it a case of that once you actually do get the help, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as you thought it might be?
It's never bad to get help, and it does help. You know, there are people. Everybody's depression is probably based on a different set of facts, but the help is general, and it does help. It's always good to talk to people. It's always good to discuss things, to think about ways out of it. Yes, go for help. If you think you need help, you must go for it. And it's nothing to be ashamed of.
What do you think was the best thing that helped you out of the therapy, the antidepressants, the walking? What was the one that helped you the most?
That's a very difficult question. I think the thing that helps is for you to get your strength back, and your self-determination back. And it's a process that takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You need to talk to people. You need to find things to do. It's a combination of things so you can get back to where you want to be in life.
And what were some of those combinations for you that really stood out, or that you're doing now?
Writing helped me a lot. I've written a lot of things that have never been published or I've never shown to people.
You write
about my thoughts, about where I thought I was, what happened, etc. And then I started writing books, and which I self-published. I had one book that was published here called The East German Clone Files, which is like a Dan Brown book. It's based on history, and with fiction. Which did quite well, and just things like that. It all helps you, if you like. I wouldn't say forget the problems, but it helps you deal with the problems.
Helps you process the problems.
Yeah.
Now I'm going out a little bit of a limb here, but a lot of the listeners to Men's Radio Station, don't forget we have a sister station, Women's Radio Station, so everyone else has a right of reply. Yeah. But a lot of guys have been through some pretty horrible divorces.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And they've been pretty vicious. I mean, no divorce is great, obviously, but some are a lot worse than others. And there were some kind of dirty tricks that were played. Do you know some dirty tricks?
What, against me?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know, are you willing to talk about that, or you rather not?
Yeah, I've got nothing to hide.
Okay.
When I was in the clinic, my wife gave my computer to the police and said I was dealing in child pornography, and it took 15 months for the police to investigate everything, including taking over all my email accounts, all my social media accounts and everything, and they found absolutely nothing. And after 15 months I get a little letter saying there is no evidence, so investigations are dropped. I mean, I knew there wasn't, and there never will be. I took out a court order against her, which she says that again, it will cost her €250,000, but the damage was done.
It's a very we're going into an ad break, but I'm just going to ask you, it's an incredibly vicious thing to do. It's possibly one of the within the top two most revolting things you could be accused of.
Yes,
it was. I mean, it's a disgusting thing. There is no if anyone who deals with that, there is no excuse. If they were sitting opposite me, there'd be a major, huge problem. So it's a very, very serious and horrible allegation.
Of course, it's the worst thing you can do, and you can't answer it until the investigations are done, because whatever you say it's the most abhorrent thing to everybody, so therefore they immediately think the worst of you.
See, the thing that goes through my mind when I hear that is I just think that people who are genuinely out there, who actually are dealing in explicit images, they are the ones who should be being investigated, and it's ultimately wasting police resources by falsely accusing someone.
Well,
that's right.
We're going to get on to this. We've got to go into a break now. Special guest Richard Vero with Phil Dave, James Blake and myself, Russ Kane.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk? Download the men's group's ground rules. Download the men's group's check-in round. There are loads of videos, and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental health and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
It's a pack. I told you it was a packed show at the top of the hour, and it really is 1 hour gone. 2 hours left to. How are you, fella? Good to see you. Yes, it's all happening as we go along. So, our special guest, Richard Vero, who bizarrely I was at school with, so it's lovely to see him, although I haven't seen him for like a million years. Although we had lunch for the first time in 200 years last year. Last year. Phil Dave and Rocking the Decks as always. I can't remember his name.
But you can see me, so you can't forget.
You know, the thing is, you've been too bigged up because the camera's straight on you, which is really, just bloody annoying. So we've been joined. You can see there's an extra guy. And this is Scott Schechter, whom I met under pleasant circumstances, and then we got chatting, and so I said weeks ago, because we are piled up with guests, come into the show, and so we have Scott, welcome.
Now, do you know what, Scott? This is going to be live producing for you. You need to have your microphone staring you in the face, so literally front on, and to top it all off, I think it even needs turning on, so there you go. Let's make sure that's on.
No, we're on. It's silky smooth. This is almost this.
Very technical, very polished.
It's good, but I can't hear you, Scott. I don't know why.
Hello.
Just can't hear you.
No,
right. We don't know yet. James will be pressing buttons and everything. We were just chatting to Richard Vero over here, who's flown in from Colditz, not on the glider. I had to do that gag. It had to be done. It was there, and Richard went through a very unpleasant divorce, at which one point his wife, I'm just going to paraphrase if I get it wrong, Richard
no problem.
At one point Richard's now ex-wife took his laptop to the police in Germany and said there was child pornography on it, which there wasn't, and for 15 how are you going to talk? What, are you going to just sit? You lazy sod. This is your way of just sitting there looking elegant and doing absolutely the square root of F all. So anyway,
and now I have a microphone.
You've got a proper mic there.
I have one that works anyway.
Right. So I'm just getting Scott up to speed. And of course, 15-month investigation. He gets a little tiny letter. No, nothing there. You carry on. And his life has been almost trashed, as you can well imagine.
Absolutely.
Through something which is just absolutely horrible. You bounce through that. And then what? Were you furious? Were you? How do you deal? That is emotions on the extreme edge of what we're capable of dealing with. Whether you're a man or a woman, it makes no difference. That's so extreme.
Well, it was extreme, and it affected me. I mean, my sister hasn't spoken to me since then.
Because I'm going to ask the question, but why? Because she thought there was a scintilla of truth in this, or why?
I don't know. Just the fact that it was an accusation that was made, I think, you disassociate yourself from people.
But she's your sister.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's a Christian.
All right.
Whether that...
Well, I don't know. But so there's collateral.
I mean,
there's a lot of collateral damage.
But it was constant. I mean, that was one thing. I had so many other problems. For example, I went to a fancy dress party, and a friend came as an armed Arab. This was whatever you'd like to say. We had pictures taken. I put them on Facebook, as one does, and within 2 weeks I had the police knocking my door down. Armed police. What the hell was this? Your ex-wife says you're associating with arms dealers. And
she really didn't like you, did she, Richard? I'm going out on a limb here. I'm hazarding a guess. Boy,
well, the problem was
she
said she found a new man because I was basically finished as a person, and obviously it's in her interest to ensure that I still am, I suppose, or prove that her point was correct.
I don't really understand that.
Well, I don't understand it.
No, what I'm saying is I don't understand it. You can understand people falling out of love.
Yeah,
that happens every 5 minutes. I can understand somebody finding somebody new. I can get that. What I can't get is somebody, man or woman, and Scott, I want your view on this, and say, what I don't understand is a man or woman going out of their way then to utterly, and you're not the first story that we've heard,
no,
just
I'm
going
sure.
out of their way to just destroy their ex-wife or ex-husband or ex-partner these days. Why? Just, for me, it's over. You move on. You don't have to completely destroy it, all but kill the other person. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but I'm living through it, or have lived through it.
Clearly so.
But I don't understand it. Who does? My only thought, and my solicitor's only thought, is that she basically said that, she found another man because I was finished. I mean, I had stopped working to help look after my son, who, as I said, was severely disabled. So finances dropped, etc., etc.
Richard, even if you were, sorry, Scott, I'm going to bring you in 2 secs. Even if you were, I hate the word finished because it's nonsense. But even if you were, let's use your ex-wife's term, finished. So what?
Well, I think we also need to stress at this stage as well, and I'm sure that this is stating the obvious, but frankly I do this for your benefit as well as men's radio station, is that your ex-wife is not here obviously to answer for herself. So we do need to tread with an element of caution, but all the same.
Yeah, I mean, it is, to my point of view, it is her being able to prove or ensure that her decision was correct. That's how I see it.
It's a mystery to me, and I don't get it. But hey, you're here to tell the tale.
Absolutely, you've survived. That's the main thing.
And the main thing about this, if we're going to draw a conclusion out of this, or because I hate, everything being a downer, is because that's not my nature. It's like you came through this. It's hell on earth, and here you are. Yeah, you've got yourself together. You're in the studio. You've come over from Germany. You're doing stuff. You're writing. You're supporting a charity. You're doing things. You're functioning. And you're more than functioning. You're functioning very well.
Look, the fact that you're back in Blighty alone should delight you. Let's be honest. Come on.
Yeah, I do enjoy my London fixes, but I would actually like to move back here now.
So move back,
and we'd love to have
maybe
you back.
For a bit. I don't know. It's very difficult. I I like Colditz, believe it or not.
No, we don't. I don't know. I'm looking at Phil Dave's face. And
No,
we're both
not
looking at each
me.
other going,
Scott looked very shocked by that comment.
Scott's going, you like Colditz? Well, he likes tunnels,
I see.
gliders, and,
that makes sense.
And all clear. I think that's how you get. Is that how you go to bed at night?
Well,
and then there's sand everywhere and dirt.
It's sort of part of our growing up. I mean,
Part of your growing.
we grew up in the 50s and the 60s.
Don't look at me. I didn't.
Well,
Philip, not everything on the planet is about you.
I am the centre of my world. When are you going to get used to this?
On your tombstone, Phil, it'll say, God forbid, in a million years' time in Bushy, or Bushy 2.0, it'll have to be. It'll say, who's the world going to revolve around now?
I know, right? What happened to the axis?
That's what it's going to say. Right, Scott, you've been
there
sitting
there you go, on the headstone. I am the axis.
You've been sitting here very, very, very patient with your own Perrier water, which is damn impressive, quite frankly.
Can I just say on that note, actually, the one thing I was more impressed by is what Spike Milligan put on his headstone.
Oh, yeah.
Go on.
I told you I was ill.
Yeah. I'm going to put, I demand a second opinion. Now, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about yourself and welcome. Thank you. I know it's taken like forever to get you to get here, but there we are. You're here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for asking me.
No, that's
very kind of you to lie like that. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
It means nothing to us. You can't butter us up. We're just yeah.
Yes, it was a pleasure bumping into you, and the way it just unfolded, and how the stories unfolded about what I do and where I work and the realm.
Well, we want to hear all about it. Go on. Tell us all.
Well, I was born and raised in London and went to school here, but I've been currently living in Los Angeles for nearly 20 years. And I work in the recovery industry. I specialize in working with alcoholics and drug addicts that are coming out of treatment and reintegrating back into real life, and working and helping them reintegrate recovery and recovery tools into real life situations, in various forms of coaching. Also, I travel. My first, as we spoke about, my first life, as I like to call it, was here as a musician, as a working artist. I was signed to Stock Aitken and Waterman for 4.5 years, many moons ago, and then I worked as
Hang on a sec, you don't just throw that in.
No, wait a minute. Now, hang on a minute. Now, we have to do, what I like to do is my litmus test with Boy Wonder here, who is 24. So anything that we're going,
24.
We're going like,
goodness
jeez, that's great. Stock Aitken Waterman, yes?
Let the doors down.
No, Stock. I haven't fired you this week. You've been quite good, right? Stock SAW. What does that mean to you?
SAW. Stock.
Oh, for God's sake! Right, it means absolutely. It means absolutely nothing.
Well, anyway, just for anyone who is potentially sort of
that is
far behind, but they don't know who SAW are. They were, I suppose,
the Hit Factory. They were called.
Yeah, the Simon Cowell record label of the day.
Oh, no. Simon Cowell hasn't. No, Simon Cowell has not had anywhere close to that. He produces stuff and then
No. What I mean is in terms of the
Well,
size, in terms of the relevance to the industry. In the same way that today, if you want to get signed up and be an artist, a lot of people turn to these shows that Simon Cowell runs because they believe that is the best one.
Well, that's
be that as it may, that is still the level at which they go to. So this
actually, Pete Waterman was the original Simon Cowell. Actually, Pete Waterman was, when Idol was first created, he was the original bad guy.
Oh yeah,
on the show.
He was horrendous on Pop Idol.
Yeah, that's how it.
Quite interesting. I'll throw something in here, a little connection. I used to work for RCA Records as a royalty accountant, and I did the royalties for Rick Astley.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God,
Rick and yes,
which of course was a.
And Richard, did you say to him
absolutely? Originally, we were
Richard, when it was
buddies.
hard, did you just say, "I'm never going to give you up"?
And you know what an even scarier link is? The other day at karaoke, Rick Astley, "Never Gonna Give You Up." Oh yes, that was my number, baby.
You just had to drag it back to you. This
yes, totally. This is how it works.
Right, Scott. So you're signed to. Oh, Scott.
Look.
I forgot the wall was behind me.
So exciting! He's actually destroying the walls now.
I had a very disturbed dream.
Oh.
And that's why I was up at 6, and it freaked me out.
And then you realised I'm here.
Hours late. I'm going to slap you. I swear to God. Mental health in the workplace. I'm just going to punch you. And
the problem is now I know how much it annoys Russ that I bring it back to me every time. That's what's going to
keep doing, isn't it?
No, what he did last week what he did last week? He acted as the audio guide for everything I did, and it drove me in. I watched it back, and it killed me. Absolutely killed me. Right. So you're assigned.
He turns back to the guest and pretends to take the interview seriously.
That's your last warning, I swear to God. Right.
A look of blankness came across his face.
That is my normal. That is my normal facial look, because there's nothing going on. It just look. I've grown the beard so I can go.
Looks good on radio.
But I can go.
It's good for you,
Scott. That's an interesting point. Stroke the beard as though I know where I'm. In my head, I'm thinking, am I going out for dinner tonight, or am I going to cook?
But what he was really thinking.
Could you shut up? Right. So you're signed to stock 18 Waterman. Right.
Yes.
Go on.
So I, was with them for a while, and then when that disbanded, I went on to playing with other artists as a session artist, session musician, and
guitarist, wasn't it?
No, percussionist.
Oh, drums.
Drums and percussion.
Sorry, yes, you told me drums.
I love drums. You can't
and spent another 7 years. Spent another 7 years playing, and and throughout that whole part of my life and that career, drinking and using drugs was all part of the gamut in
See,
the
people
90s.
on the outside of the industry. Now, I've been in it,
Yes.
and I'm not saying it from a moral viewpoint at all. I don't do drugs. I've never done drugs because it's very simple. I'm a control freak, and I don't want to be out of control of myself. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And I've never been tempted. It's just, and I never have. And I don't do that by patting myself on the back.
No.
I just don't. But I know that it's there, and it's hugely available. And it was part and parcel of like having a cheese sandwich. It's up to you if you wanted to have it or you didn't want to have it.
What was the pull for you? What actually drew you? What actually drew you, would you say, to any substance abuse or anything like that? Was it peer pressure? Was it just because you were a sheep and everyone else was doing it, or was it actually an appeal?
He looked like a sheep. He's built like an IKEA wardrobe. This guy.
It's funny.
Do you mind? He looks much stronger than an IKEA wardrobe. What's wrong with you?
This is a guy who is a Jimmy.
That's a very interesting question, because
I do try.
As part of that, as part of the industry, it was so natural. It was just a rolling part of the job, which was drinking heavily and partaking in drugs when they were around. It was. We would have business meetings. We would sit down with the band and the management and quite openly drink and use it. There was never the dark side of it, which was like, should we sneak around and do this? There was no need to sneak around. It was all very open for us. So there was never any real stigma or taboo about it.
But for you personally, though, was it a case of that you willingly participated because everyone else was doing it, or because
absolutely.
you actually just thought, I quite like the idea of this?
No, I willingly participated. Again, drinking more than I probably should have done. Actually, drinking, being part of the culture here in England, growing up in this culture, when I speak now on recovery, I always say I actually don't come from an alcoholic family, but I do come from an alcoholic country, and use that as kind of because as part of our nature, part of our culture, there is a very heavy drinking part to it, and there is a very fine line between heavy drinking and overstepping that line, shall we say.
When do you overstep the line?
Well, I think it oversteps you. I think if you have what's classified now as a disease, if you have that nature to you where it becomes compelling, where you have to, or you have the inability to stop at certain points, where people will start drinking and then just drink to the point of, passing out every time.
Every time.
Some people do, yeah.
Wow.
And the majority of people that we talk about with addiction and alcoholism is they're usually trying to numb some sort of pain or feelings. Actually, let's not even call it pain. Let's just call it feelings. And over the years and a lot of the work that we've been doing, without it getting all heavy, is a lot of untreated trauma. Is the fundamental
let me
basis.
Stop you there for let me stop you there for a sec. You're young, you're all having a lot of fun. So you're not at that point,
Correct.
You're not at that point having pain. It's part of the culture of that side of the entertainment industry.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So
you don't see it as a problem at that time.
No, it's not a problem.
But it is.
Because Richard, you were you were in the entertainment industry on the accountancy side, which is key to it. Let's not, music business, 95% business, 5% music. So you are, you're very aware of all of this.
Yeah, and you, as you said, it's around you all the time. Used to go. I used to share an office with a guy who his first thing in the morning when he arrived was to use drugs. That was normal, almost.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
those days, in the 80s, it was prevalent, very prevalent.
So I get when people who might have a really horrible job or a horrible life, I understand that it's, let's just use the word escape. You're going to get into the technicals of it later, right? But it's not an excuse when you're having a great time and you're young and you're doing just what you want to do because you want to be a pop star. And here you are, you're a pop star.
Right. Excuse me. Well, absolutely. But there's a kind of a little very basic phrase that we kind of overlay onto everything, whereas it's fun with problems, then problems. And if you look at a lot of people in the entertainment industry that are still currently very successful, right, making money in the public eye, and how many of them are we seeing go through breakups, divorces, problems, behaviour problems, arguments, fights, because of their drinking or wild behaviour, or relationship breakups because of infidelity, which is usually, can be fueled by, alcohol and stuff like that. There's follow-ons and there's triggers all the way that overlap. And we often see members of our industry, in the entertainment industry, go through their issues in the public eye.
And I'm guessing you spot things through your work in sobriety or what have you. I'm guessing that you probably spot signs and symptoms in those, don't want you to name anyone, by the way, but out there in the ether, in the limelight, who probably strike you as obviously abusing.
Absolutely, yeah. And but it's not right for me to make a judgment upon others, but as much
is it wrong for those who don't use to judge?
I think really theoretically we shouldn't judge at all, until it's,
But okay, so let me put it this way.
Yeah.
But based on knowing that 90% of drug taking is illegal, right?
Right.
Well, it's made up statistics, so don't take my word for it. But based on knowing that a lot of drug taking is illegal, and exactly the same way that we would look with an element of disdain on someone, for example, who is a cat burglar, who maybe burgled a house, they're breaking the law by breaking and entering. Why is it not okay to look with an element of disdain to someone who's taking drugs that are illegal?
Do we not already?
No, but what Scott's saying is that we shouldn't judge. So what I'm saying is that why wouldn't we?
Oh no, sorry. When I said we shouldn't judge, we shouldn't make judgment upon them whether they're addicts or alcoholics. I'm not.
I beg your pardon.
Sorry, I'm not judging.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking
saying
about the illegal activity.
the illegal activity is what it.
The thing is, though, that many people have pretty dull, boring jobs. I was going to say pretty dull, boring lives, but some people do. And they look at the people who are foisted upon us as being fab. I'm not going to mention any names whatsoever, but the household names, and they're on the magazines and everything's marvellous. And they're sitting with with a pretty lousy life, and they go, these people have got absolutely everything. They've got the cars and the money and the holidays and the glitz and the glamour and all. We all know it's not real, but when you're in it, but if you're not in it, it looks real. And then they become, alcoholics or have serious substance abuse problems. And a lot of members of the public go, well, you had everything. And that's how you deal with it. Why aren't you happy?
Because
I think that's what I'm saying is, on the outside, a lot of people can say, why aren't you happy with what you've got? Why have you got to do that as well?
Well, I think the fundamental thing around that, there's an old phrase that says the biggest lie we can ever tell ourselves is, if I get what I want, I'll be happy. Often growing up, we often think that if I have that job, if I have that person, him, her, that'll fix it. That'll fix me. Now, some people, it's fame. And they think if I have become... I've worked very closely in this industry and with that kind of, echelon of people. So I'm talking first hand here, where I see these people that have everything, as you said, that we subsequently look at on the outside, but there's nothing on the inside anymore.
Can I just say, I'm nodding along here like the Churchill dog, and I tell you why, is because I think even at a non-abuse or substance abuse level, that you can actually relate to exactly what you've just said there, because there's someone I know who is, I don't want to identify because it's not very fair to them, but they are part of a family who is family friends, if you will. And for many, many years, this particular individual has suffered with depression. And they're a great believer that if they only found themselves a wife and they had their own family, that suddenly that depression would go. And I have said for years, I don't believe that to be the case. Because there's obviously...
It won't be the case.
I don't believe it to be the case there, because it's obviously something that is inherent. I don't know whether or not...
Richard's kind of nodding along there, disagreeing.
I'm half nodding, half shaking my head. I think everybody's problem has a different solution. So to say, somebody needs a companion, and that's not necessarily right. For some people, it is right.
If it's...
But my point is that person is depressed in the first place, and therefore they obviously have tendencies to be depressed. Doesn't that just mean that they are potentially finding what they believe to be the answer, and then it's going to be a bit of a nasty shock to them when they realise actually they still suffer with depression, but then it's potentially over something else?
Well, that could be the case, but you have to remember they probably had a period of time before the depression where they had a relationship which was all good, maybe. So therefore, from experience, they see that as being a good thing for them.
Now, there's elements of that, though. There's nothing wrong with wanting, a healthy career, healthy relationship to enhance your life. But if I've seen it where people go, if I have him, if I have her, that will fix me. And then it doesn't quite fix, and then they think, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a child, because that's what's going to do it. That's going to fix us. That's going to bring us closer together. Let's have a child. And then they have a child, and it maybe another child, and invariably it doesn't always work. If we continue to judge our insides by looking at other people's outsides, it's always a disaster, because
that is the quote of the day.
That is a fantastic
quote of the day.
The other thing is that material things might bring you fleeting happiness, but it's on a diminishing return.
Oh, bless you.
Do excuse me.
You are live, you know.
I know it's live. I can't help it. I'm sure John Humphreys at some point must have sneezed or coughed. He must have had that. But they would have normally what we used to call the cough button. You could press a button and your mic would go dead.
You'd be none the wiser.
You wouldn't know that I suddenly got a sneezing fit.
Alas, we've eliminated that problem at Men's Radio Station.
Because we don't have the button. We don't have the budget.
Have the budget. I was
we don't
going
have
to say
the budget for the
button.
neither the B or the B. So it's true, though, that people think if I get that watch, if I get that car, it does come from within. They're all lovely things. They're nice things to have if that's what turns you on, but it won't change you fundamentally as a person.
But actually, thinking about it, maybe it's the same sort of premise as substance abuse, because when one takes that substance, I assume, I have to confess, I'm not a substance user, never have been. The most adventurous I've got is Nurofen. But if you were to take that particular hit and, quote, numb the pain, well, it's only a quick hit, isn't it? And exactly the same sort of way that if you are angling for something and you there go for and get it, maybe it only remedies the pain for a short time, and then you realise something else comes. So it's the same kind of premise.
That's exactly the premise. I mean, when you look at addiction and substance abuse, we also look at eating disorders with food, shopping, gambling. That's all a quick fix. It's a temporary solution.
And going outside for a bit of fresh air, I always find. My special guests...
Emphasis on the fresh.
Yeah, the fresh. It's funny how he comes back smelling. Scott Jackson.
Wow.
Richard Vero.
You've got to stop rummaging through those bins.
Phil Dave, James Blake. I'm Russ Kane. We'll be back in a mo.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's radio station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental wealth and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
That's right, you are listening to Men's Radio Station on a Friday afternoon now. Yes, it has just gone 12:30. Russ Kane, Phil Dave, and rocking the decks as ever is James Blake. Joining us in the studio, we've got our very special guests here, and what a conversation we've got. We're joined by Scott Schechter. Is that the right way of saying it?
Schechter, but it's close enough for jazz.
Oh, so close.
Close enough for jazz.
I do apologise. Scott Schechter, and we've also got Richard Vero, who is here. And they are in the middle of a fascinating discussion, actually. We're talking about addiction, and we're talking about different types of addiction, and actually finding the common themes within that. Now, the reason we're talking about that, Richard, is because that I beg your pardon, not Richard, Scott. Yes. Because, Scott, your work, I've always been terrible with names, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
But the reason why we're talking about this, Scott, is because it's very much what you do. So, for those who don't know, why not actually take the time now to explain what it is that you actually do?
Okay, I took over running a company called Sober Companions. I became vice president at the beginning of last year, but it was a company that I've worked with extensively for, almost a decade. And a lot of the jobs that we do in recovery are, when people are finishing treatment or coming out of treatment, we can live with them, travel with them, we aid and assist them and in their recovery by reintegrating recovery and the tools they may have learnt in recovery into real life situations.
And I take it this is per case, there's a lot of these places where you go to different, say for example, in-house places, for example, where they have, it's such a cliche now, a program, don't they, that you follow a program to recovery. So are you suggesting that this is more tailoring for the individual?
It's tailoring for the individual, but usually comes post going to a treatment centre. And realising that hasn't worked, or it helps them, it gets them started.
Well,
it can help get them started, but
it's a continual process.
It's a continual process. But also, I actually, without getting a little controversial, I also believe that there's a lot of programs out there that aren't doing great work. So when people do come out of treatment centres, or should we say rehabs, they're not quite ready to integrate back into real life and go back into...
And what do you see in the individual who's gone through the rehab that obviously those who are running the rehabilitation centres believe they are ready? Why do you think they're not?
Well, I think that I don't always think that they think that they're ready. I think that time and finances run out, and I think that people are left back into the...
We were on Monday at this huge conference, and there's an organisation called The Cabin that we're sort of associated with, and a little bit they've come in and they've talked to us, etc. And it's set out in, where is it? Thailand?
Yeah, Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai.
I know it.
Right, you know The Cabin, right. And so I was talking to one of their senior guys there on Monday at this conference, and, you know, he's saying people go over for 28 days. So I said, that sounds a long time. What do I know? He said, well, 28 days is just not long enough at all. Because, and this goes back full circle to what we were saying a little bit earlier, in as much as, one, if they've got chemical addiction, I used to call it drug addiction, we can call it chemical addiction. If they've got chemical addiction, you got to get rid of that first.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, what hadn't, despite all the hundreds of interviews we've done in this studio, all right, you've got rid of that. Now we've got to get rid of the reason why you became chemically dependent. And you can't do that in 28 days.
No, you can barely, you know, a decent, depending on what the substance is, a detox program can last 5 to 10 days to longer, depending on...
And also the other thing as well a lot of people don't think of is that if it's a habit that has built up over a great number of years, you can't possibly undo that kind of behaviour in such a short time.
It's associated with everything. You know, it's one of the hardest things for people in recovery to do, in early recovery, is to do normal things. It's very hard when you haven't been touched by it yourself to be able to think that somebody, once they've stopped drinking and using heavily in addiction, that they really don't know how to sometimes go shopping, do normal things, to socialise with people without having booze or narcotics.
I actually feel like I've just had a light bulb moment there. I can't believe that I didn't even think for a second. I mean, like I said, obviously speaking as one who hasn't gone down the route of substance abuse, I guess why would I understand? But it never really crossed my mind how, of course, once someone has gone through rehabilitation, the association that they would have with everyday tasks such as shopping, even the people that they see, how can they just get back to some sense of normality when actually their normal, or what was their normal, has been completely turned on its head?
Absolutely, and it's covered so much. You know, a lot of the issues, as your friend was saying from The Cabin, you know, in a 28-day program, there's very rarely you can basically polish somebody up, scrub them up, make them look good, and hopefully give them enough of a window of clarity where they can start making some choices for themselves. You know, it's choice, not chance, that runs our destiny. You know, it's all about choices, and it's when we get some clarity that we can hopefully start making the right choices. And we try and create that safe space. We don't make choices for people. We try and create a safe space around them where they get to make the right choices for themselves. And even if the choices are wrong, being accountable for them. You know, as you were saying, that the hard thing with addiction is we look at people and then we say that their drinking and drugs are a problem. They're not a problem for most people. They're their solution. It's their solution to their feelings. You know, and once you take away somebody's solution, right? If you take somebody and you take away their solution, they're left with their feelings, not knowing how to deal with them, and they're often underlying from, you know, traumas from many years ago.
I get, if you're on the road as a pop star in the entertainment industry, but let's say you're on the road and you're touring, you've got hours of boredom because you're working for maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I mean, that's your what's your job? You're going to go on stage and you're going to... I'm not decrying it, because it's a multi-billion-pound industry, but if you think about it, if you break it down, what's your job? You go on stage for maybe an hour, 2 hours, that's it. You're working and you're getting paid a fortune to do kind of 2 hours work. But that 2 hours, you've got to travel and all the rest of it, and there's huge huge amounts of boredom. Travelling is it is so boring, and it's repetitive, and you don't know what city you're in, and all of that sort of, I had a minor brush with it, and it drove me up the bum.
But it's amazing how much boredom has got a role to play in people carrying out bad habits.
Well, that's exactly. That's the point. That's the point I'm making. You've got hours and hours, and you think, oh God.
Because I know that for me, something as silly. I've got this really stupid little tick where if I'm bored, I keep clearing my throat. But I know I don't do it when I'm in the middle of something. If I'm in company, I wouldn't do it. If I am, certainly wouldn't do it if I'm live on it. But yet, if I'm sitting in front of a machine, answering emails, and I'm bored to tears, I'll stop.
See, James
and
has
it's really silly
James
little
has a strange little habit when he's bored, like in the middle, he'd just be playing Tetris. That's what he does. He just sits. He's got 1,000 screens. It looks fantastic. He's playing Tetris.
So we're boring you, are we, James? Sorry.
Three screens, Tetris, and he's doing really well. Or is it Candy Crush?
Well, Tetris. I'm old school.
Obviously, yes. He's retro.
But boredom.
Do you see what I'm? Do you see? I can. It's not an excuse, Scott, but I kind of can get. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What I'm saying, it's like...
No, I agree. But boredom for me, and for many others, was my primary trigger.
Yeah, there you go.
On tour, when I was playing as an artist and as a musician, I actually drank and used moderately, but I couldn't play hammered, and I was a subsequent professional, so I couldn't play well, drunk or high. So I didn't get hammered prior to the shows. Afterwards a little bit. But the moment we stopped touring, and I had time and money and nothing to do, and all that time in my own head, that was game on then.
But does it make
boredom? With boredom, you think a lot. And if you've got a problem, you think more about the problems.
Well, spending too much time in one's own head is never the...
It's never good.
Exactly.
It's never good. And
does it make it worse though that because you're able to control it in the right environment, that you can't control it the rest of the... I mean, for me, I'm a hypocrite because I know that I can control this. I'm bringing it on a really trivial level because it's all I can relate to. But if I know that with this really silly little tick of clearing my throat, because I know that I can control it when I want to, it obviously makes me the biggest hypocrite that I can't do it when I'm on my own or when I am bored.
But that's the whole point, though, isn't it? Is that you've got nothing to do. So you
but
try
I shouldn't
and fill that
do
time.
That. No, but I shouldn't do that, though. I don't need to. The fact that I can get away with it, to me, someone who is truly addicted to something is someone who can't live without, no matter what time of day, no matter what they're doing, no matter who they're with.
Well, there's stages of addiction. I mean, there's stages. Like at that point, I was drinking and using heavily, but willing to coincide my career and my playing. Later on, it progressed more when I wasn't as focused. I was a little bit more depressed, and the mental health comes in, and then those feelings, because I wasn't working as much, I wasn't on tour, I wasn't as successful. So to numb those feelings, I would drink, and what always had worked for me in the past to make me feel better, drinking and using
didn't work.
Didn't work.
Now when we met purely by chance. So we just happened to sit next to each other somewhere, and we got chit-chatting away over a cigar, to be honest with you.
Hard luck, Scott.
And Scott, you just feel free. And
just deck him, it shuts him up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Your story, because Richard was very honest earlier, I mean, extraordinary story and in great honesty, and thank you, Richard. And your story shocked the heck out of me.
Yeah,
I know the other guys don't know.
Yeah, so following on from where that started, I had a very good music career, and I ended up in Los Angeles working and playing. And in a nutshell, my drinking and using had really taken its toll on me and got its grip. And obviously things suffer. And in that whole process, I ended up homeless on the streets of Los Angeles.
Wow.
I'm 13 and a half years clean and sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
thank
you.
But 14 and a half years ago, actually around this time, it was in November that I came off the streets. I was homeless. And that's where it had taken me to.
What? Because you spent everything you had on?
Yeah, not just financially, but I was mentally. I was beaten up. I was broken. I wasn't working. My career was in the pan. Really, what it boils down to, there's so much guilt and shame around everything. And it's something that fuels so much addiction.
The question a lot of people will be asking, and first of all, on behalf of everybody here, bravo, because
Thank you.
It doesn't get any lower than that. It kind of doesn't get any worse than that. And here you are now. Is what happened to your? I kind of can guess what the answer, but I want to hear it from you. What happened to your friends or any sort of support system? Say, Scott, all right, let's try and help you.
Well, the funny thing is, it wasn't really what they did; it's what I did. You know, the isolation. You know, my cure for loneliness was to isolate. You know, it's a very, very lonely life being an alcoholic or drug addict. Even the ones that you see to be very outward and open, it's a very isolatory issue.
But even though you may be using with other people, it's still you consider it lonely.
Yeah, it's because you know, you go home. You know, you start spinning in your head. For me personally, people did try. I did have friends that did try and bring it to my attention, which I thought was like, yes, I'm very aware and I'm fine, thank you, I can handle everything.
This was a sense that you thought you were in control when maybe you weren't?
It was a moment in time. I was a little depressed. It's going to be okay. Things will get better. All the things that I was telling myself, and quite rightly, in hindsight, you know, friends kept trying, but they can't help you until you're ready to help yourself. They couldn't help me until I was ready to get help, even to the point of the shame and guilt that was around being homeless. This is a funny story.
Just before you get into that,
Yes.
what was the turning point? Out of interest, what was the point when you thought, okay, I do need help?
Well,
because I'm sure there'll be others out there who will be interested to know. They obviously sort of potentially can relate to what you're saying. They maybe don't recognise that they need help.
Yeah.
In fact, they may even be listening to this totally blasé, thinking, well, I don't need it. But maybe they do. And what was the point where you thought, okay, time now?
Well, it was a couple of years before I was homeless, actually, where I knew that I would wake up. I would drink in the mornings. I would have to drink. I was ill. My body needed alcohol. I had to drink. Otherwise, I'd wake up shaking and sweating, and if I didn't drink, I got very sick. So
the total withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, I would start to withdraw, so I would have to have. And by the way, my drinking at this point, it wasn't about going out and getting drunk. No. I could drink a bottle of vodka and talk to you like this, and you'd have no idea. It was just to maintain me not. I had to drink a certain amount, and I'm sure there's people out there that can relate, actually, that, you know, they wake up with hangovers, or, you know, they'll have a couple of beers, actually, and just to feel normal again.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of the way the body balances itself out. But when you have huge amounts of consumption, you know, your body will actually adapt to it. But it's very unhealthy.
So how much, if you don't mind me asking, but to give some sort of guideline, how much were you drinking? Like what?
I was drinking about 2 bottles of vodka a day.
Oh my God.
2 bottles of vodka a day, beer and wine and drugs. And most of the time...
Hang on. 2 bottles of vodka a day, plus beer, plus wine and drugs?
Yeah.
Cocaine. How the hell you're still here is...
No, seriously, do you ever think like that? That you're lucky to be here?
You know, I'd be really honest here. You know, abstinence-based programs, 12-step-based programs, abstinence-based programs, which we all know what they are, but, you know, due to our principles, we can't advertise them, or I choose not to. I can say save me, but there's a huge amount of luck, and I'm very grateful every day. I mean, it got to the point, for me, I would wake up and I would have to drink, and I would swallow a mouthful of vodka. My body would reject it. I would have to suffocate, like I'd put my hands over my mouth and nose to force myself to swallow it.
And was that just to stop the withdrawal symptoms?
To stop the shaking. So I'd have to do 2 of those, and then I would stop shaking, and then I could have a cup of tea.
So total vicious cycle here. Sugar. Your body was rejecting it, but you had to have it because you couldn't function without.
Yeah, and my body would. I just want to. One of the things while we have a radio and while we have an audience here, I love an optimist. One of the most. I'm joking. Please do. Dangerous, if not the most dangerous drug to withdraw from, is alcohol. Alcohol and benzos, withdrawals, not done correctly, you can die from. You won't die from an opiate withdrawal. It'd be horrible, you'll want to die, but alcohol is the most dangerous thing.
When we were talking about this, that really resonated with me, and then I was discussing it actually at the conference, and I was quoting you. And they said, oh yeah, absolutely right. Opiate, etc., it's vile and you will feel like death, but you won't die. Alcohol, you have a good chance you might actually die.
Just to, obviously I was there with you, so what is it that is different between an alcohol withdrawal and an opioid addiction? What is it that happens that makes it so dangerous?
Alcohol, the way that it withdraws from the body in such a rate, you'll have seizures. You can have seizures.
Oh, God.
And that and benzodiazepines too. Benzodiazepines and alcohol.
Hang on, you've lost me. We don't know what that is.
Oh, they're
I'm going to say mercifully. Richard, do you know what they are? No.
Basically,
it's a type of medication, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're the medications that are quite freely available. Valium's one of those. Valium's actually the safer one. Xanax.
Aren't those opioids?
No, they're benzos.
Opioid is more painkiller based.
Yeah.
I thought Valium was a painkiller.
No.
Mind number.
It's a mind.
Yeah, it's anti-anxiety.
It was hugely popular.
Hugely popular. Loved it very much.
It was massive.
Loved it very much. But I was a big fan.
That's another story.
So
none of us have clean hands.
So it can cause you to have seizures from an alcohol. But what is that? Just your body would just start convulsing because
you will have seizures and die if you're not careful. With a massive alcohol withdrawal. Yeah, it's very dangerous. That's why a lot of things, when people try and detox themselves, you have to be very cautious depending on how. We have to be very careful about how much people have really been taking.
How do you detox someone then off of an alcohol addiction? Because I assume you just go cold turkey, but that's
that can be very dangerous.
That sounds like it can be very dangerous.
Gradual decrease, no?
Yeah, if you're doing it, I wouldn't advise to do it like this.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you can taper down, but obviously if you could taper down. Normally, you wouldn't be in the situation that you're in, right?
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question because the sort of mental image, the picture you've just painted of you having to you're choking and you're forcing it down so you can even function. To go from that and this vast quantity of stuff that you're taking to get clean, how did it even start? How did you suddenly you've hit? We have so many people have come in and said, and then I hit rock bottom, and I think Richard would probably be one of those who would agree. But how physically? What are the kind of mechanics of how you move on?
Well, for me at that point, my end game, I also had 2 ulcers and one had perforated. I was bleeding. I couldn't stand up straight. Even when I got sober, I couldn't stand up straight for like 6 weeks because of the pain. So I was in really bad shape. Yeah. And one morning I woke up. I'd been drinking heavily. And one morning I woke up and this wasn't like an aha moment, but I wasn't sweating and I wasn't sick. And I wasn't, actually, to be honest with you, I felt quite normal, which was scary. And I went out into the kitchen area where I would normally drink. My friend had found me, my English friend, God bless him, Sean O'Sullivan. He rescued me and found me on the streets, and he took me to his house in Los Angeles and allowed me to stay there. And I still didn't get sober for about 3 months until I was there. And it was at this point. That morning when I felt relatively normal, but everything was all the colours and everything was very bright, and I was squinting. And I remember, to cut a long story short, I remember walking out.
Don't worry about that. We've got another hour and 10 minutes. You keep going.
And I felt really normal. I did, and I didn't feel the need to reach for alcohol. And
so just to clarify, so by normal you mean that you weren't craving?
Yeah, I wasn't craving, shaking, sweating.
I was going to ask, how could you by then tell what? Did you remember the original Scott before all this happened?
No.
So what is your kind of barometer for normal? At that point?
Well, the normal was literally just getting through the day. Just surviving the day, you know, just try and find any modicum of just to feel. We take all these drugs to get up and then come down, drink, and then, you know, just trying to feel like we are now. Isn't that crazy?
Unbelievable.
There was no high left anymore.
It's not crazy. It's just... this is such the reason why I said to the guys, I really wanted you to come in, because you're very honest and you're very open about it, as Richard has been with his own, you know, devils he's had to fight. But it's very hard from the outside, because we're not doctors, we're broadcasters, we're facilitators, to get our head around that. Because I drink, but like you just said, 2 bottles a day plus, like whoa. That's like...
I don't even think I could face the prospect of 2 bottles a month. Seriously, I don't even think I could do... No, seriously.
I don't know about that. It's like... and then you're saying normal will be how we're feeling now. So what I'm thinking is you're so lost at this point. Right. The Scott Schechter that was the good drama and everything else is going well, he's kind of disappeared into this swamp of stuff. It's hard to remember who you were.
Absolutely. I mean, the I guess the yardstick for whatever normal was just not feeling sick at that point.
I mean, like literally
physically
sick. Okay.
Sick, being able to walk, and I had this pressure on my shoulders, pushing down on me, and I just had this thought go through my head, and this was it. It was, you're gonna die. Even your body has stopped fighting for you.
Ooh.
That was and I have to be honest, and I'll be really honest. There was a peace, there's a serenity in it, but it felt like all the shaking and the sweating and the feeling sick, it was my body fighting to probably try and stay alive. And at this point, it felt like it had just stopped fighting.
So in a strange way, your body was like your last friend.
Yeah.
Your last ally, and you in that state thought, well, even my best friend, which is me, you've just given up.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, Scott, I'm really sorry. Earlier on, there was a point when you were just about to say, funny story, actually, and I stopped you. I don't know if you can recall what that is, if you want to say what that was now, but I know that I stopped you in your tracks, and it was very rude of me. So for anyone,
I actually can't remember right now.
I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted.
It may come back to me,
but I do apologise. But
you know, it's. You know, it's funny, when we first met, we were talking about how, and I see this in the workplace, and I see this in other men and women all across the board, where I hear this, where people are drinking heavily and things aren't going right, and I hear this, if you had my life, you drink too. If you had this...
Oh, how many times we've heard that.
Right?
Yep,
now here's the thing. In the work that I do and seeing the after effects of people's sobriety, unfortunately, there's that disconnect. Often you hear the phrase, if you have my life, you drink too. Mm-hmm. But they fail to see that it's because of their drinking that they have the life that they have. They're connected.
Yeah.
Mm. You know, if you have my relationship, God, if you were married to my wife or husband, you drink too. If you, I lost my job, you know, all this happened. But when you actually do, you know, trail back the life, how many things did get affected because of drinking? How many arguments are facilitated in the household because somebody's come home drunk, or both people are drunk, or somebody's turned up late to work because of being a hangover? You know, there are correlations. I'm not saying everybody's is, but there are correlations, and we have to kind of just be authentic and open and aware and look at those and see if they do become problems. That's how we try and help evaluate.
Do you feel fulfilled now?
I do feel fulfilled. My real honesty is I miss a creative side, a part of my music life. I still have started to try and reintegrate that in a production level, but there's another level of we're always taught that I only get to keep what I give away. You know, part of my program, part of what I learned in recovery is I have to give it back. I have to do what I can to help others.
Do you ever miss the feeling of alcohol or drug?
No, from that day that happened, I told you that feeling that I felt my body had given up. I've been sober and clean and sober ever since.
You do get to that point where you feel you should give it back, because I've done the same to a certain extent. I've been very fortunate to have a good life, and now I've survived my problems. Even though I'm 68, I feel I can actually give back a lot to other people.
Right.
We're in conversation with Richard Vero and Scott Schechter. I'm Russ Kane with Phil Dave and James Black, back in a mo.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental wealth and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
You are listening to Men's Radio Station, coming at you live from the centre of London, right here in Covent Garden. I'm Russ Kane. In the studio with me, as always on a Friday, Phil Dave, and making sure that everything goes out and adding his 10 cents worth, boy wonder producer James Blake. I'm with Scott Schechter as well.
Hello.
Who has been extraordinarily honest with a brutal, gut-wrenching story of how, well, I've been very honest, some people have total nightmares of getting cancer, or some people have nightmares of getting divorced, whatever, and my nightmare is being on the street. Be on the street in LA, trust me, you may have the sunshine, but you've got everything else, and it's a nightmare. And that's what happened to Scott, and he's now clean, he's sober, he's here, he looks great, and it's a story of triumph over adversity. And it's no good people saying, yeah, well, it's his own fault. That's not the point. That's not how we do it.
Do you look at it as that, Scott?
What?
Do you ever blame yourself for the situation?
No. I mean, from working for many years, there are people that are. It is, as I said, now classified as like a disease. It can be a terminal illness. Untreated. It will always end up in one of three ways: jail, institution, or death. If you're an alcoholic and you can't stop, it will end up one of three ways.
has to be one of those 3 ways?
It will probably end up in some form of, you'll end up going some sort of crazy or end up something, homeless or causing crime, or, it can take you to many different ways, usually. Are you okay there?
Yeah, it's fine.
Ross is fine.
I'm fine. Now
technology betwixt.
Yeah, that's great. Now we are joined by someone. I'm only going to use his first name, which I'm going to change to Anthony. I've decided. So, Anthony, thank you for joining us. You need to speak right into the microphone. You can be semi-anonymous, but you can't be inaudible, because that would just be...
That wouldn't be radio.
That is just the world's worst radio. Phil will adjust the mic for you so we can... so I'm going to call you Anthony today, because I think that's the cool thing to do. You have a heck of a story. And we met, we discussed this over lunch with a mutual friend of ours, and I know you needed to think about it, which is why I said we're kind of pushing the envelope today, because we never know how these things are going to go. But thank you for coming. Thank you for brave enough to coming into the studio. And start to tell us your story.
Well, it's just I've got to be very good friends with Alex, and my story is that basically 3 years ago, marriage after 30.
How many years?
30.
30.
Yeah, right. I met my wife when I was 17, friends, and then we got married at 19, had children. And so I was a happily married man for 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
And then things went a bit wrong. And at the same time as me and my wife were on the verge of breaking up, I had to have a medical procedure, which was male circumcision. I was now 47 at the time. And basically, I went to have this procedure done.
I'm just going to say quick. Everyone listening is thinking, ouch.
It was a very big ouch.
Ouch, right. Thank you for fixing that.
More than the physical side of it, it's what it done to me psychologically. And that is what I've been struggling for the last 3 years of my life, dealing with depression. So I went into a very, very deep depression.
Yeah.
Doctor put me on antidepressants to get on with my life. But the last 3 years has been a struggle, because having that procedure done, physically it's changed. And it's not just a little change. When you're 47 years of age, you only know one way of doing things for 47 years of your life. And it is only a piece of skin, which is, people would think that. But it does make a big difference to how you do certain things. And also, it was how it made me feel as a man, and how it made me feel afterwards.
Just to be clear, and we don't want to go into too much detail, but this is something you had to have done.
I never had to have it done.
There was an option not to have it done?
I basically went to the doctors about the year before and asked my GP because when I was a young lad, I remember suffering. When I was about 7 or 8 years of age, I remember going to the doctors and having infection and things like that, and had a tight foreskin. But then as you get older, got married and had my wife, and I was a happily married man. I had no real problems. Towards the end of our marriage, things weren't quite great, so maybe it got me thinking maybe there was something wrong down below. And so I went to the doctor and said, "Do you think the foreskin is a bit too attached?" He said, "Well, I'm no expert." He said, I'll get you to go to hospital and let them have a check for you.
It's always handy when a doctor says that.
I'm no expert, yeah.
Makes you feel real. Where should I go? Quick fit up the road. You're a doctor. What are you supposed to do?
And especially with something as sensitive as.
Precisely.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Precisely.
So I went along and saw the consultant. It was a female consultant.
Did that bother you?
At first, I was a bit taken back by it, because I thought, okay, female. I mean,
I'm asking because it won't bother me, but I know some people, even as we hit nearly 2020, people go, "Well, this is a very intimate, personal problem." Or rather, it was a guy sitting there.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You've got to address the issue.
Yeah.
It's just how some people are.
And the other thing, which was quite at the time, I thought was a bit funny, is that she said, "Would you mind if I have two?" Because obviously, am I allowed to say the hospital's name?
I'd rather you didn't.
Okay. It's the students.
Right.
So could we have two students being in consultations?
Right.
Okay. And it was
Great.
two female students.
Oh, great. So
it was 3 females.
I mean, how crap did this situation get? Okay.
So anyway, yeah, she said, look, yeah, there is a bit of skin attached, does it affect you? I said, well, sometimes I might get a bit of discomfort in intercourse, it's not all the time, but sometimes, but I have never aired it or said anything to my ex-wife.
You've never said anything to her at the time?
No.
Why?
No. Well, because
because you're an Italian guy and you're handsome,
it's not even that.
and it's like, what is it?
Well, over my years of growing up, I did suffer with anxieties and panic attacks, and I kept that a secret from my family and even from my ex-wife. She didn't find out until I was in my mid-30s when I seeked to have counselling to try and battle that.
Do you think, because our tagline is where men really talk, do you think it might have helped you in hindsight? And hindsight's a genius thing. We can all be Monday morning quarterbacks, can't we? Do you think it would have helped your marriage had you said, look, Mrs. Anthony, X, Y, Z, this is happening to me, this is how I feel, rather than keeping it all to yourself?
It's much better if you talk, especially with your wife. But the communication obviously needs to be both ways, but it's much better if you're open with each other.
Yeah. But do you regret not talking then?
I do. But I think then I was a different... I'm the same person, but going through what I've gone through as well the last 3 years has changed me in the way I look at things now and the way I am with people. And it's changed me to be more open and talk about depression. Because without me talking about it with my family the last few years, and especially my sister, who's been there for me all the time, so if I wouldn't have had that network of people to talk to.
It's really interesting because our previous guest, who's just gone to get a cup of tea and everything, and because our studio doesn't have elastic walls, Richard Vero was saying that when he had his problem, when his ex-wife did what she did to him, his sister's never spoken to him from that day to this. Not one word. Ever. And it's really lovely to have the counterbalance as we continue through the programme that your sister was right there, right by your side. And
yeah,
great.
She has. She's always been there for me. But for the whole family, she's never taken sides in any way, form whatsoever. Okay. So I've had that, at least, that person I could go to. And bless her, she had to see me cry most days and go to her most days and crying. And she's always been supportive and been there for me. So I was thankful for that. But yeah, absolutely.
Did your wife, before you had all your medical problems, which we'll come on to, you'd been prone to depression?
Not depression.
Anxiety then.
Yeah, I lost my mother when I was 11, so I think that had a big effect on me. And it was a year from the age of 10 to 11 that she got taken ill, and then she died when I was 11 years of age. And then the next few years were very disruptive because we went to live back in Italy for a couple of years, then we came back to England again, so I lost my schooling. So those few years were quite turbulent for me, and I never had a place to... So I did suffer with panic attacks, and it was after my mum's death that I started suffering with panic attacks. Before then, I never used to have them. And I never used to say anything to anybody because you felt...
You never said anything?
No, not even to my sisters, my family.
Did nobody, Anthony, notice that you, as a little boy, because you're now 11, 12...
Yeah.
No one said, "Are you okay?" or "What's the matter?" No one picked this up.
Not really, no.
I mean, I'm not being judgmental. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, no. I just went through, had my panic attacks, and I would just. I remember most times it would happen at that age.
How do they manifest themselves? Because a lot of people I know listening, and they go, "I think I've got that." So it's very demonstrative.
It would just start with the breathing. Your breathing would just get accelerated. And all of a sudden you panic, what's happening to me? And I would run out the house for air. And that's when I was at the age of about 11 and a half, 12.
You just felt you couldn't breathe.
Felt I couldn't breathe, and I had to run out the house many a times. And then that just stayed with me through my teenage years. And I didn't speak to people about it then because
was there anything that triggered it off? Or
I think my mother's death.
No, that I get.
Oh, okay.
Obviously.
No, but what I meant, when you went into a panic, was there anything in particular that, say, for example...
No, you would just start to breathe heavily for some reason. This was then. And then afterwards, in my later life, in my late teens and 20s, I would get panic attacks if I was in a confined space.
Have you learned how to manage them now?
I have now, yes.
So what was the remedy for that?
I had counselling. When I was about 37, I spoke to my doctor, and he sent me for counselling. And with the counselling and with my own mental sort of talking to myself, I would get myself through those situations. And as you realise you can learn to stop them happening, then it brought me out to do things I wouldn't normally do, like go on a tube and plane travel and things like that, because I felt quite, you know. And then
it was intimidating.
Yeah. And then you feel inferior because all your friends around you having a great time jet setting and doing things, and you're not. You're keeping yourself away from these situations.
And what does that do to you? Does that make you think, why them, not me?
No, it just made me feel inferior. It just made me feel
it just doesn't help the mental cycle, does it?
It doesn't.
Because initially you're like, I'm struggling with this thing, and it's like, oh, but they're doing this, and then it's just a horrible circle.
Exactly. And you would, and there were some situations where you could feel yourself getting very anxious, and you was in a group of people. And you couldn't
group of friends.
Group of friends. You may have gone out somewhere to do something, but yet you was feeling this anxiety inside of you, but you couldn't let them know what you was feeling because you felt embarrassed to say, I'm having a panic attack.
Well, you're obviously doing well, you guys, because we've got loads of people watching on Facebook Live, and I'm going to give some shout-outs now. Sorry, I just said. So, hi to Paul King, Dave Brock, Janice Serling, Caroline Stevens, thank you so much for joining us. Janet Hogg, thank you. Sandra Butler, who's always fascinating. Barry J. Allen, the Flash, as I always call him. The great Esther Ray. Esther, just buy a hairbrush, do us all a favour. And Amanda Waterman Voas, thank you. I'm just sending you a wave as well. This is all fantastic stuff. And, this is good. Sandra Butler, you need to get more men talking about mental health. Sandra, that's what we do. Trust me.
No, Ross, there seems to be a running theme in terms of what intimidates you, and I've noticed it's to do with follicles.
With follicles?
Well, you just said Sandra, she needs to buy a hairbrush, and you're forever...
No, I didn't. No, Sandra's hair's very neat. Esther Ray.
Oh, Esther.
Esther
Ray. Sorry.
So Sandra always looks immaculate. I can assure you from her photos. We've never met.
Do apologise.
But Esther Ray, well, what can I say?
Well,
I mean,
and the number of times you make reference to the lacquer or the gel that I must use, you know, I'm sensing some sort of follicle distress. Do you need to talk?
You're such an ass.
Yes.
Now, Anthony, here we are. We're dealing with stuff. We've got to bring it back to your hair. Only you.
Hey, look, do you know what?
Well, it's all about you and it's all about your hair. Phil, shut up. Right. So, Anthony, here we are.
Yes.
And it's interesting. When you, I'm going to bring Scott back in because you've been very patient. Then we need to talk much more. But did you feel this word that we've touched on today, and also Richard Vero said the same thing, inferior, this whole inferior thing?
Absolutely. I felt less than. I felt different, you know.
But you didn't when you were on the road, let's say,
yes.
And you were, let's just the pop star and having the life of Riley. You didn't feel inferior then that you were drinking and doing drugs.
No, I didn't. But it was also it was an alternate character. You know, I was heavily bullied when I was at school. So I was picked on and was made to feel less than when I was younger. And this deals back to like the early childhood traumas. So I was picked on, and because I was very overweight, and made to feel less than and left out. And then it was only through, should we say, like the ugly duckling kind of scenario. Yeah. And then when I became successful and on TV, people wanted to be my friend. They wanted
what a surprise.
But I was still the same person inside.
Of course.
And so it was a beautiful suit of armour for me to hide in. And then I learned how to use that, manipulate that.
But it's often the case that when, you think of Fat Reg from Pinner, when people are being very, very cruel. They don't think, it's
my cousin.
Sir Elton John. No, Phil, it's not about your cousin. But, when you watch that thing and you see he's still the same kid from Pinner, but now he's like one of probably the biggest star in the 70s and 80s in the world. But inside, presumably, he's still Reg Dwight and suffering and feeling exactly the same. He probably thinks he looks the same.
And that was all part of his process. whatever it may be, there's a grieving process, but there should be a grieving process because there's something that you've been attached to. So people just think it's a shock, it's not there, but actually it's a loss. It's a loss. Yeah, it's a loss.
It was just. Yeah.
Then had yes. You don't have anything. So the mics are very direct. So you need to speak like charming. And then what happened? Procedure.
I had the procedure
at 47.
And left the hospital with a piece of paper. This was the advice not to have intercourse for 2 weeks and to apply this cream that leave the hospital. And that was it. I just, I had no come back in a few weeks' time to make sure everything's going okay for you. And I went home. I was okay for the first few days, and then I started to feel the pain was pretty excruciating. The discomfort was really, I'm an active person. I'm a builder by trade, so I'm very into my sport as well. So all of a sudden now you're in a lot of pain. You can't do what you want to do.
Was there no warning, Anthony, that they said, well, this procedure might be pretty damn painful and it's going to take X weeks until you feel better? Nothing.
I honestly believe that I would come home and within a few weeks I'll be back to my normal self again.
Wow.
No one ever said to me this could take up to a year to fully heal up.
A year.
Wow.
And it hasn't even taken, it actually is 3 years on the 27th of November, which was a couple of days ago, and I still am not 100%.
3 years on.
Yeah, 3 years on. Yeah.
So the moral to this particular little tale, little adjunct here, is if you're thinking about having a circumcision late in life, think twice.
Yes.
Unless it's absolutely...
Or 3 times.
Oh, well,
unless it's absolutely necessary.
At least
you need it.
If you've got to have it, okay, but you're listening to Anthony's story, he leaves with a... I wonder where you're going to go with that. And you have a piece of paper, you can say a little envelope. You left with a piece of paper and good luck. Cheerio.
Basically, yeah. That's
it all goes well. Did you go back to the medical people and said, it's killing me?
I went back to my GP a week later, and I said, by then I'd really started to that switch went on, that grieving process, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done to myself? It honestly felt like as if I'd self-harmed or done something horrifying to myself. And then my head just was in a frenzy, really. Went back to the GP.
And you're with your wife at this point?
I was still with my wife at this time, but that was the time we was going through our breakup.
But, crazy question, so please bear with me.
Yeah.
Did you say, I'll see you later, madam. I'm off to the hospital to have a circumcision. She went, okay, have a nice time. What? Did you talk about this?
We didn't really talk.
What did she think you were going to do?
We were
having a tooth out or something?
We were going for a breakup at the time, so we wasn't really.
But you're you're under the same roof.
We are, but she knew I was going to have it done, obviously.
Oh, wait, all right, okay.
And she did come to the hospital to collect me, and she was there just before I went in. But because we wasn't really talking great at that time,
right?
You both get angry with each other. You don't really communicate very well, do you?
Okay.
So, and I honestly thought I was going into the hospital to have a very, very minor procedure.
Minor procedure?
A minor
They kind
procedure.
of sell it as a minor procedure,
that's
if you don't mind me
that's
saying.
how it was sold to me. It was just so I honestly thought I was going to have a very minor procedure, and in a few weeks' time I'll be back to myself again, which never really happened. So I went to see my GP, and he said, "Look," he said, that everything's fine. The surgery's gone well. It looks fine. Give it time. It will heal. But then I just went downhill from there. That was it. And the more the anxiety built up in me over panicking about my future now, especially if you realise that your marriage could possibly be coming to an end, and you've done this to yourself. Who's going to want you afterwards? How will I... all these crazy thoughts started going through my head. And I got through November and December and Christmas time. And then got to the end of January, and that's when I really, literally couldn't cope anymore. I was just crying every single day, in absolute pain, and it got to the point where you thought about suicide.
To end the pain.
Because I just thought I can't cope with this anymore. I can't. Not just the pain, but the psychological impact of me being the way I am now. That it was so strong in me that I had changed who I was, and I won't be that same person again. It just it overtook me, and I was very, very. I mean, many times I'd go into my garage, because I was still going into my garage to try and do some weight training, and many times, I'd just be thinking in there because I just couldn't cope anymore. And that's when my sister took me to the doctors and he put me on antidepressants.
Right. Thank God for your sister, eh?
Yeah. Well, it was a difficult time. And even then, they put me on, the first tablets they put me on didn't really help. I think they got me worse. The first week, I really went very bad. They'd put me on some kind of anti-anxiety tablets, which seemed to make my anxiety even worse. And then my other GP, he saw me on those tablets, said, no, you shouldn't be on those. I'll put you on these ones. And they helped. I could sleep at night, because that's the other thing, sleep. I wasn't sleeping. You'd go a whole night with maybe an hour's sleep.
It's fun, isn't it?
It's horrible. Your heart's racing constantly. You have no appetite, all those feelings, and that's when you just feel like I just can't cope anymore.
It must be incredibly stressful. It sounds like you're constantly in like survival mode, almost heart racing, like alert. Like
you don't switch off. Your head is constantly regurgitating the same thing. Why did I do it? Why did I do it? Why did you go and do that for? You was fine. Why did you? It doesn't leave you alone. It's just constantly there.
It sounds almost like some sort of a little bit of self-hate, like self-blame. Like, oh man,
absolutely, yeah.
It's actually part of PTSD. It's a traumatic incident that you're repeating over and again, that you've experienced.
Yeah.
It's a trauma, and it's repetitive, right? It kept going around in your head.
It does. I mean, my GP at the time, after I'd gone back to him later in the February or March, he said to me, you're going through what I would call a loss disorder syndrome, which is very similar to what people have amputees, because but
I suppose in essence you have had something amputated.
I wish they said that to me back in October when I was having the consultations. You may feel like this. You may have these psychological feelings afterwards. What is the state of your life at the moment? Where are you in at the moment?
Do you think it would have helped if they had made this aware to you? The psychological impact. If they sat down and said, "Look, you might go through some trauma."
100%.
You think it would have prepared you?
100%, because it would have made me think. It would
have made you think about it twice, right?
More than twice, yeah.
So many people are now joining it. I suspect it's because you're both ridiculously good looking. It can't be me, Phil, and James.
It's because they can see me on the camera now.
James, that must be it.
I want to jump in. I just want to jump in here. Actually, to your defence here, the medical industry, the doctors, especially in my field in recovery, the medical industry do not and will not. And it's only now they're just starting to, but they will not associate like mental traumas with physical problems. I mean, they're starting to, but the whole idea.
Could you elaborate on that? What do you mean?
So basically, everything that you just said was completely correct. That you should have had a consultation, a psychological consultation, and there should have been knowledge given to you about this, but. I felt that the doctors that just do doctor work
exactly
will be like, no, this needs to be done because it needs to be done, or you're going to do this and it's going to be this, and you're just going to heal and get on with it and use this cream. And there are psychological effects linked to so many things now, but it's only post facto. Then nobody's giving any advice in advance.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that I just don't think there's the either the knowledge or the respect that needs to be.
I'm going to say hello to the people who are watching. There's now just so many, which is so terrific, and for that I've got time, James. Mal Young, hi Mal. Mal Young, who I'm not going to go into his CV, but Mal, delighted you've joined us. Rusty Egan, one of the top DJs in the world. Ron McCrate, thank you. Debbie Moliterno has joined. The lovely Sandra Butler, as I said. Sandra, I think you know me by now. Glenmore Trenier Harvey, hello to you. Simon Ludgate, always a pleasure. Ryan Margolis. Andrew Rochford, yes, as in Andrew Rochford. Jacqueline Quick, the great Bernie Murray, say hi to CT for me. Yvonne Ball is there. Sandra Butler is saying, I can relate to having an operation that doesn't go according to plan. She is so brave. She is such a generous person. We've not met, we correspond, and she is honestly got a heart of gold and has gone through hell. Pauline Cutler, hello to you. Amanda Lennon, the great Tricia Court, in the world of theatre, hi Tricia. Mark Rise, and of course, the Queen of West End Theatre, Penny Horner. And one of the bravest stand-ups that I've ever met, Chris McGlade. I had the pleasure of working with him. He's been a guest here at Men's Radio Station, and he performed brilliantly up in Edinburgh. Lois Grant and Rosemary Jessup. Somebody called James Blake, I don't know who that is. Heather Zerfas is there. Gran Simpson, the wonderful Joe Hart, the only person I trust in the music industry. Danielle Benson and Lee Mack. And then Sandra Butler is saying, you should ask Merrill Osmond, Crazy Horses and all that, to join in when he's back in the UK this week. He's had mental health problems, which he's more open about these days. So many people watching on Facebook Live. I'm Ross Kane with Phil Dave and James Blake. Time to take a break.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Do you want to hang out and really know that you've been listened to? Do you want to debrief and have a laugh and not have to fall down the same hole as every other man in front of you? Then why not go to mensgroups.co.uk, download the Men's Groups ground rules, download the Men's Groups check-in round. There are loads of videos and you can just hit the ground running, growing with other men.
Your call is important to us. You are now number 15 in a queue.
At Profile Insurance Services, we treat people as individuals. You'll speak to a real person, not a call centre. We're fast, small, independent, and have a superb team of insurance specialists. And they're really nice too. Advice is totally free and we cover everything. Call 0208 931 3306. Listeners to Men's Radio Station won't pay a penny for admin fees. That's 0208 931 3306. With Profile Insurance Services, you're covered.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, the only radio station that's 100% dedicated to mental health and well-being. We're on air and broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we never sleep. If you want to listen on the move, please download our app. It's easy to do. www.mensradiostation.com is the website, or follow us on social media. Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Hi, I'm Noel McDermott, licensed psychotherapist and host of Wellbeing Wednesdays. During Wellbeing Wednesdays, I talk about all things psychotherapy and mental well-being, offering practical help and advice on issues around relationships, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, whilst trying to improve your mental wealth and giving you an interesting stories from our guests. Join the conversation, have your voice heard, or ask for advice from one of my many specialist guests. We can try and advise you on your problems. Be part of the conversation. Come and join us every Wednesday from 9 to 10:30pm on Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
Talking Therapy Sessions, a new radio show coming soon.
Hear pre-recorded professional counsellors talking live to their clients.
Hear real-life issues being discussed.
Listen to how trained practitioners deal with these issues.
Never had a therapy session before?
Not sure what counselling entails?
Tune in and hear firsthand what a therapy session is really like.
Brought to you by the Men's Radio Station in partnership with the One Stop Psychotherapy Shop and supported by over 200 trained counsellors across the UK.
You're listening to Men's Radio Station, where men really talk.
I don't know where today's gone. It's just like a rocket. It's like one of those rocket sledge things that they test the strength of nuclear facilities with in the States, down in Nevada. Amazing. I'm Ross Kane with Phil Dave, and on the decks as ever, Jay. You could take lessons from Rusty Egan, who's watching. Rusty Egan is like the king.
Rusty, any tips?
Rusty
really
Egan, the king. Let me tell you that. And amazing. Rusty, buy something else other than a black T-shirt. Go on, knock yourself out.
He wears. I think there's a coincidence there.
Say buy anything other than a white.
There's a coincidence there.
We've got some wonderful people, and let me just tell you, I do shout outs and I do stuff like that because we appreciate your support more than you will ever know. Because we don't want to be in our own little echo chamber. It's not designed for that at all. Our guest is I'm calling Anthony because he's dealing with very, very sensitive, very sensitive subjects. So I was prompted to ask this question. That microphone's not going to work unless you twist it into it. There we go. If only we had the stuff. And are you sitting in now? Yeah. Oh, you're joining us now.
Alex has joined us.
So, now in camera is... Why are you so tiny today?
I'm always tiny.
I forgot your little tiny person. Alexandra Lichtenfeld, try saying that. Alex of the World. Alex and I go back to, I'm not going to tell you how far, to the days of the Flying Eye when she was in charge of BT Cellnet and was one of the major sponsors of the Flying Eye, and we're still friends. And I'm thrilled to announce live on air that Alex is going to be joining our team, which is we've had a soft launch, as we say, but Alex is joining our team full time, and she's going to be broadcasting from February because she's basically too shit scared to do it before then.
That's so true.
That is exactly. She said, "Can we do it in February?" I go, well,
you're on microphone, which has changed to Monday. I'm quite excited.
No, I like microphones.
Oh, she's like the ballsiest person I know. And then she said, "Well, I don't think I could." Forget it, Alex. You're on. So there we go. Now, Anthony. Yes, and we met Anthony via Alex. So thank you for the introduction. And Alex said to pose this question, which is a terrific question. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have occurred to it. When you go for cosmetic surgery, we used to call it plastic surgery. Let's call it cosmetic surgery. And then the surgeon and all the team go, well, do you really need this? You want? And they go into the whole psychological backstory, as I call it, of why you're having this done. Unless you kind of disappear to Eastern Europe and they probably just ask, could you just do cash, please? Yeah. All right. So, but you're having, at 47 years old, a circumcision, double ow, even thinking about it makes me press my knees together, and no one asked you anything.
No one... No,
did they not say to you, Mr. Anthony, why are you doing this? Do you need...
No one asked me why.
I find this impossible to get my head around.
Yeah, no.
What was going through your life at this time?
No one asked me. When my GP found out afterwards, months later, that I was going through a breakup, he said, "Oh wow," he said, "If I'd known that, maybe because the two together," he said, "I think that's what's caused the perfect storm, and that's why you've really gone downhill because you've had this procedure done, your marriage is on the rocks, and you're going through lots of kind of trauma."
And just to remind the listeners, you had the procedure done because you were in pain.
I wasn't in pain. No, I wasn't in pain. No, I wasn't in pain.
Discomfort, I think, was the word you used, wasn't it?
What, prior to the operation?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't even in it's hard to explain, but if you have a foreskin, it's a little bit too tight. It doesn't always give you problems.
You're asking the wrong guy.
It's only when
I hate to tell you.
All three of you.
We might not be able to relate to this, I'm afraid.
Boy, you're in the wrong studio.
If it's a bit tight, when you're having intercourse, it can give you a bit of discomfort. So I was never in a lot of discomfort. So I wanted to know, because that particular year I was feeling quite... I knew there was something not quite right within the marriage, and I was just feeling a little bit, could it be this, could it be that? So I wanted, and because I remembered being a child, having problems down below, that I thought maybe I need to have something rectified down there.
But I hate to ask the obvious question.
So much so he actually can't.
Excuse me, I'm just dying here.
What? Yeah, you're quite all right, Ross. But I would carry on for you, but I've no idea what your question is. I'm so sorry.
It's Gemma Collins. Why? No, the question is this. Would it have really helped if you'd said to Mrs. Anthony, look, here's one of our problems that I'm not satisfying you, or this, that and the other. But presumably you didn't have that conversation.
We didn't have that conversation, no. I didn't have that conversation. And so that's why I took myself to the hospital to ask a professional opinion whether I needed it done or not. And that's where they said, well, yes, you have a bit attached foreskin. If you want it done, we can do it. So that was it, really. So I just thought, well, I'll have it done. It would be better.
It sounds excuse me for saying, well, it just sounds a bit of a casual thing. We're not saying, you know what, Anthony, I'll tell you what, let's try blue nail varnish. If you don't like it, we'll change it and make it red.
I mean, I blame myself.
It all sounds a bit sort of cash.
But then I blame myself. Well, you were the silly one to take yourself there in the first place. So you have that going on.
Not at all.
You know, well, it is because it's me who asked the question.
Hang on. Let me. I have to stop you.
Sorry. I'm going to interrupt you because you know that's what I do.
She's not even
female
waiting till February.
To interrupt.
Yeah. You sure you want to start?
You are not the same person now as you were 3 years ago, and you were not as vocal 3 years ago.
I was not. No.
So your ability to articulate yourself then about what you were feeling wasn't really there.
No, it wasn't.
So there's no reason for this question particularly, other than what happened to you has changed you, and you are now far more articulate.
I'm completely different in myself in so many ways. And even though at the beginning, the first year, I was very angry with me and angry with what happened and how I was feeling, but now I'm quite, I wouldn't say happy, but grateful I went through what I went through, because as me as a person, it's changed me completely. It's made me it has made me a stronger character. It has made me more vocal to talk about these things.
Think about this for a sec. You're in a radio studio.
I know, exactly.
You're talking about one of the most intimate things a guy could ever talk about.
Yeah.
So that's some journey that you've travelled. Think about that.
Yeah, it is.
It's no small thing that you've done
Yeah.
today. That's my point.
Yeah.
By the way, Faye Casme wants to ask, Phil, are you cold or are you ready to rush out into the cold?
Yes, thank you, Faye. I am not cold. No, this is all in the name of style, but I appreciate your concern. Thank you.
Faye, I don't get it either. I'm with you. Right. So
why would I take a scarf off when I look
when you look this look this good?
The other question is that so men who potentially are in this position now and are where you were 3 years ago is articulate how you feel as well as ask the question about something physical. Is it not just physical, is it also mental?
And also this is one of the reasons why I decided to come on here, because I did have to think about it long and hard.
You did.
But so if there are other men out there, and also I would be fascinated to know if other men have suffered the same psychological worries that I had, and if they went downhill the way I went downhill and had the same feelings of harming yourself, that you're not the same person anymore, and how will you do things. It would be lovely to know if other people have gone through it themselves, men, and also to make other men aware that it does have a psychological impact on
Phil, Dave, if people want to join in, apart from Facebook Live, which is going like a rocket ship today, how do people join?
Facebook Live is going great, actually. And I would say that if you are willing to watch us on Facebook, you can tune in live by going to facebook.com/Men's Radio STN. And also, on other forms of social media as well, you can get in touch with us through Twitter. We are at Men's Radio STN, and on Instagram, the same handle. But of course, if you want to use the old dog and bone, as they say, please do give us a call, because we absolutely love to hear your stories. The best way is to call us on 0203 290 4411. That's 0203 290
and if you
Anthony,
in case you haven't got that number, let me just communicate it in a beautiful musical David Mindel way.
0203 290 4411.
There we are, David. That's my way of
making
my
headphones off for that split second. How careless!
I have to interrupt for a second, because no matter how much I do enjoy hearing the jingle, unfortunately the phone is not working for this last half an hour of the show.
Oh dear.
So
we've just thrown out for nothing. But
is there a particular reason the phone isn't working? Did we pay the bill?
We have.
Which means did I pay?
Would you like to borrow 50 pence? We can shove it in the meter.
Someone forgot to put it on charge, let's say that.
Okay. So, hold it. Now, Anthony, bear with. Bear with. When we say the somebody...
I don't know, I'm going to investigate further.
Okay. Would it be like someone who looks like Ed Sheeran? Kind of.
Don't know who you're talking about.
Okay. Would it be someone with red hair who recently just got rid of his beard?
Red hair?
Yeah, reddish, gingerish hair. All right, I'll narrow it down. I'll throw this out. Anthony, help me out here. Would it be someone whose mum looks after our green room?
You might be on the right track there.
Okay, because it wouldn't be my mum because she's been dead for 18 months.
You
So
might be on the right track there. But if you want to contact us, social media is the best way today.
Psychic?
My mother is laid up in bed with food poisoning, so it's not a...
You been cooking again? So...
Now, let me know, actually. I make very good food.
Just look at your doodles. I'm sending them up.
I can
so if I had
pierce film and shove it in the microwave like it's no one.
I don't do ready meals. Do you do
no,
ready
me
meals?
neither, actually.
Ready meals? Try not to.
No.
He's Italian. He doesn't do ready meals.
He's Italian.
I would like to actually reassure you, I'm about to save your show and possibly
I love it. Suddenly it's my show.
A certain Mr. Blake's back, because I'm about to restore.
You know, if you had a phone
telephone.
charger, you could have told me this morning when I told you.
I had no idea you were after a phone charger. You never said. This is live radio at its finest.
Beneath this sophisticated surface, dealing with some of the most intimate things, we're just idiots underneath it. But, you know, we're happy idiots and we're doing our best, and that's kind of it. James is in my good books because he worked his socks off on Monday. I've got to be honest with you, he really did. And that's the only time. That is your Christmas gift.
That is Christmas.
For the next 2 years.
Come early.
Thank you.
What? That thank you. That was
That's good enough.
That's good enough. What do you want?
Take it.
What do you
Do you
want?
know what? For us, that was kind
That's quite a big deal. How are you feeling now, Andy? Not you, Phil. We know how you're feeling. It's always hungry.
I've been very measured today. I'm on diet.
Well, okay. How are you feeling now?
As in
optimist? No,
for my future.
How is Anthony the person?
Anthony the person is feeling better. I mean, I'm still. It's another thing that doctors don't tell you is that you can develop scarring. It can take a long time to go down.
This was never mentioned up front.
No. So now I'm 3 years on. And still have...
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
Then you're going to go back to answering that question. But please don't name the hospital or the doctors.
No,
please.
No, I don't know their names.
I don't want to be embroiled in some brouhaha.
Yeah.
Is that... Do you have the basis for a lawsuit? I'm not
not at all.
Business, I'm not a lawyer.
No. There was no negligence on their part.
No, it wasn't negligence.
No, so...
But if this was in America... I mean, we're not in America.
No, we're not.
If you were in America... You'd be like, well, you never told me this, and I've got this damage, and I've got this trauma, and I've got this mental.
Yeah, I just feel that they could have told me that you could develop keloid scars.
Did you look any of it up?
Not really. I mean, I had a quick look on the internet at the time.
Why are you so cavalier about this?
Because in my head it was going to be a simple procedure. That's what I...
Look, I remember as a kid getting it caught in the zip of my school trousers, and trust me, that is not a pain, and that is not a pain that every guy would go, oh, Christ, I remember that. It's not good news.
No.
It's not good news.
Yeah.
So going through what you went through...
You didn't even have the extra bit to get caught in the zip.
What can I tell you? God was generous. So there we are.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's...
it was in the sale, 20% off.
I took myself to have it done, and that was it, really. So,
but you're feeling more optimistic now.
I'm feeling more optimistic now. Especially
you look
the last
you look
year.
very well.
Yeah, the last years, well, this last several months for me have been my best several months. So I've had a very busy year.
I'd like to reassure anyone listening, actually, that the phones have now been reconnected. So if you did,
what was the number again, James?
That number once again is.
Yeah.
I was going so well.
0203-290-4411.
And for those of us whose first language isn't fluent, twit 0203-290-4411.
One day,
yes,
in the
not
not too distant future, I'm going to get David Mindel over from France. Not tell you he's coming. We'll go somewhere.
Yep.
It's not Joshua Royce. It's Dave Mindel.
It's David Mindel.
And
he's just going to deck you.
As I have said numerous times.
Yeah, well, go on.
I absolutely applaud Mr. Mindel's work.
And Steve and Jax.
Production-wise, it is spot on.
Thank you.
It is just not my thing.
No, okay. All right,
and I think that it belongs in the 1980s.
It's kind of strange, like sitting in a boiling hot studio wearing a scarf. There we are. So, Alex, as you're here...
Yes.
God, blimey, I've never seen you look nervous around me before, and I don't know how many
I don't know what you're going to ask me.
Well, no.
It's a nerve-wracking moment.
Stop it. What, because we've been talking about it, but tell people what you're going to be doing in February. Just throw forward a little bit what's happening in 2020 with you and why you've joined us and what the passion is.
The passion. There's something.
Well, don't look at me.
It's not you.
You asked her what the passion was, so there you go.
The passion is tackling mental health in the workplace, addressing it, talking about it, and somehow finding a solution for it. And Russ has asked me very kindly to come on
with Howard
Men's radio station, yes, with Howard, and host a 1-hour show, probably twice a month to start with guests talking about how they are addressing mental health in the workplace, whether it is a business owner or someone who has suffered from mental health at work and want to talk about it, get it off their chest, and just open up the conversation. And we hope to uncover a lot of home truths about it, I believe.
That was the question. So at the start of the show, we were talking about how work can sometimes be a good place to kind of escape a little bit, get away from the problems. Did you find after the surgery you couldn't go back to work, and then that kind of didn't help everything?
Well, I had no choice but to go back to work. I'm self-employed, so I had to go to work. And
did you find it helped then, being kind of out of the house and being away?
No, because I was in excruciating pain trying to do building work, and I was working on my own.
Were you on? There's a question. It leads on from Scott Schechter.
Yeah.
Obviously, you must have been on painkillers.
No.
You're so Italian.
No,
I wasn't on painkillers. I just had an extra bowl of pasta.
I mean, I don't think there would be any kind of painkillers that actually could help with that. I mean,
are you serious?
Yeah,
you weren't
seriously.
on painkillers. Because my question was then going to be how you were lucky not to get hooked. You've been in so much pain.
The only one I have got hooked on is going to do my fitness for my depression.
That's good.
And yoga. I was practicing yoga before all this happened. And even when I did not want to go, when I was feeling my worst ever, I still would drag myself to yoga. And that really helped. And it's been helping me throughout the last 3 years of my life with depression.
Now, if we go back to depression... Have I interrupted you?
No, please, go on.
Okay. If with depression, so many people say, and when you read about it and you look up on and research it, that exercise does help. Not doing exercise won't help. Yeah. So the worst case is hopefully you'll feel a bit better. The worst case scenario, you won't feel any worse. But it clearly helped you. And it helps a lot of people. Even if you walk.
It will definitely make you feel better because I've always been into my fitness from a young age. So it was not something that was new to me. But all of a sudden, I was in this deep depression. And then one day I realised that once I left the gym, I would have a better evening. I'd feel more positive that evening.
So what's the release of, Phil? Endorphins. Isn't it?
Yeah,
The release
exactly.
of endorphins.
So all of a sudden I realised that, that keeping healthy and doing fitness does make you feel better. It's not just hearsay. It does make you feel better. Mentally, you feel like this morning before I came here, I went to the gym to do an hour session because I knew that it would put me in a good place to then get on with the rest of the day.
But you've been I have to say something to you. We Alex introduced me to you, so we were discussing, because it's a very big thing that you've done. You're a pretty private person, Anthony. And even from that, which was a few weeks ago, because James does all the bookings and we are rammed at the moment, which is fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody.
And thank you, James, for coordinating.
Thanks, James. You're a great guy. Don't worry, I did it on your behalf,
Alex,
Russ. Don't worry.
I have nothing to say.
The thing about it is mental health in the workplace. What about my mental health?
Hey, look, you said you could do it when you started this place. Don't look at us.
I'm just glad to know it's not women that interrupt all the time.
What a bunch of bitches they really are, to be honest. Now, the thing is, what I'm saying...
You have to interrupt. You don't go word and edgeways in this show.
One more time, I swear to God. That you are
what?
even... I'm just going to throw something at you. Is that... Look, right, Tony Klinger is watching. Not just a great producer and a writer. He's watching. His father made the greatest crime film this country's ever made. So shush, please.
From one great producer to another. Hi.
I like what you did there.
Yes. You are way more articulate and more positive and stronger than even a few weeks ago. That's the point I was trying to make before Tweedledum and Tweedledee started off here.
Well, I feel, a few weeks ago when we did first meet, I was selling the family home, which I'd lived in for 20 odd years. So I was going through a rough couple of months of just overwhelmed feelings of, you know.
Did you have a lot of attachment to it?
I did, because it was a 3-bedroom when we started, and it was a 5-bed, lovely garden, pizza oven, and I used to have all the family down making pizzas.
He's very Italian.
Yeah. So it did break my heart to get rid of the house. Not what I wanted to really do.
The only advantage of you getting rid of the house is that the three of us here haven't just rocked up, because we heard the word pizza, pizza oven. We're like, boom, we'd have been there like 5 o'clock tonight. Aye, remember us, Anthony? Remember what?
Yeah, well, I can come and build you one. It's not a problem.
Fantastic. That's an invitation. That's being accepted.
How much will it cost?
Oh, we'll have to talk numbers afterwards. I can't do it.
That's what I like about you, Alex. You
got to earn a living. You have to earn a living.
I like this, Alex. You can see how Alex's shows are going to be in 2020 in February, because she got started. Don't mind the romance of the pizza. I'm savouring it and thinking about how much they're going to cost. Right, get down to the wire. So it's interesting, because for you it had emotional attachments. I'm kind of. It's a weird thing. I've had a whole seismic shift, and I'm not attached to anything.
It had a big. Yeah, I mean, I was living there with my daughter as well, and so even though she's 27, but
have you shared any of this with her?
In what? How I felt about leaving the property?
No. About your problems.
No, I haven't discussed.
Does she know?
She knows I've gone through depression. She knows that.
Does she know you had a circumcision at 47?
Yes, they know I had the circumcision. Yeah, both my children know I had it done.
And you were in pain for 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, my son, who I'm currently living with at the moment until I get my new place. You know, when I first was thinking about coming on to here, I spoke with him as well and asked him what he thought and if he was okay with me doing it, because I wanted their blessings as well. And I spoke to my daughter, and they were both okay with me doing it. You know, I even spoke to my ex-wife and said to her, I'm going to be talking about depression, and make sure she was okay with it as well, you know, because at the end of the day, they're all my family still, so, you know.
Your son was quite enthusiastic, actually, wasn't he?
Yeah, because he's a teacher, so he works with that, and mental health has become quite aware now in schools, and he's been on one of these courses to learn about mental health with children and things like that, so he's, so he was, you know.
I'm just thinking, you're a builder.
Yeah.
Right. And you're getting your new place, which means that you can have huge rows with yourself.
With myself.
When you turn up late. With yourself. When you turn up for a cup of tea. And
stop having a break.
And then you can say, 7 sugars, you haven't got sugar. And then you have to send yourself out and have another row. And then when you're behind schedule, you can scream at yourself. It's brilliant.
Exactly, yeah. I can even sack myself.
You can then sack yourself and say you're no good, and then you can rehire. So it's brilliant. I can see the whole thing panning out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to finding a new place and starting a new chapter. That's what I'm looking forward to.
The advantage you have is that you can actually do stuff.
I can do stuff.
I can do nothing. I think I could change a plug, possibly. That's kind of it. Change a light bulb. That's a big deal.
I love DIY.
Do you?
Love it.
Are you any good at it?
Do you take your scarves off? Do you take your scarf off?
I'd say the most adventurous I've ever got is in our last house, I laid the kitchen floor.
Do you know what? I was going to interrupt and say, I don't know if I've ever seen Phil do it. But to be fair, Phil was the man
I can't do much else.
Forefronted the studio redesign. So
did you take your scarf off for that?
No, no comment. No comment.
You know what? I'll admit it, I did. For that, I did. I got a bit schwitz towards the end.
So probably, maybe he's got tattoos there. Maybe he's got tattoos.
I have to say this, and I mean no offence, because correct me if I'm wrong. Do you have tattoos? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't bear tattoos, so it wouldn't be that. Sorry. So it wouldn't be that. It's just because I believe a British gent would never expose his neck.
Out of interest, when did you get your tattoos?
Me?
Yes.
A friend of my son's in not far from
When?
Sorry,
how old were you?
When?
What was the address?
Later in life. I was in my 40s when I got them done.
Do you reckon there's any correlation maybe between the tattoos and the surgery and kind of everything?
No. I always wanted to have a tattoo. But then I got married young, and then you're trying to lead an example to your children.
So as you can't tell your
children. But then my son came home at 18 with the tattoos. I thought, okay.
Tell me all about it. Big up to Alicia Liddell. Give our love to Rod.
That reminds me, I've got to go to Lidl.
I was going to bring it right back to why we're here, which is men's radio station.
Little happy face.
I know.
He's happy.
I'm happy.
He's relaxed. I
am relaxed,
his heart, and we have welcomed him. Right.
This is men's radio station, and it's about men talking. And the point you are trying to make is that if you want to change something in your life, talk about it first with someone, even if it's the NHS who seem not to want to talk about it with you.
Regardless of why I'm here and the procedure I had done.
Say what you want.
Good.
Knock yourself out.
It's about living with the depression for the last 3 years and going through having to work, self-employed, having to go through a divorce, having to do all those things while you're suffering with depression, and how it makes you feel. And I know that for me, if I never had a network of talking to people about things and opening up about things, it would have been a lot harder for me.
But you had a family, you had a sister.
I had
a lot of people don't even have that.
And I had friends. Sadly, with them, I found this, that I talk more openly with females because they will openly listen to you and have an input.
Ooh,
guys don't.
That's such a
So hang on. Then that's really interesting then, because you referred right back to the start of your interview. You mentioned about how you had female consultants and then subsequently female doctors who came in. So is there an argument to be had that maybe put you more at ease with them? Because you mentioned with them that you weren't so sure.
Then I'm not, because obviously now I'm a different kind of person. I'm more open now and talk about things, where then even growing up I wasn't. I'd keep things to myself. But I know that in the last few years, guys find it hard to be with another guy who has depression, who's feeling very sad. When he starts to open up, they can't deal with it.
It's a very
macho thing. They'll start talking about football or rugby or something else.
You try and go
very
somewhere else,
heart of why we started all of this.
That's it.
I was going to say, welcome to men's radio station.
Where men really talk. It's interesting.
It is interesting that the guys
have you seen the thread that runs through all of our guests? From Richard Vero, who's come in from Colditz, from Scott Schechtel, who splits his time between London and LA, and yourself, Anthony, that all of you have been through hell and back. All of you have suffered.
In your own unique way as well.
And it's all very separate, all totally separate paths. And you've hit rock bottom and you've all bounced back. And all of you are here to tell the tale and share it, for which we thank you enormously, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to come and do that. And I know you were hesitant, and I hope it's been a positive experience.
It has been positive, yes. It has been positive for me. And hopefully, if there is men out there who have been feeling psychological impacts after their circumcision and how it made them feel, then because I always wondered, is it just me? Is it nothing? I am the only person who ever felt like that?
No.
Or is it other men who've had the same
It's this whole theme of isolationism is that everyone who's done this, you heard Scott, even when people were trying to help him and he's on the streets in LA, his way of dealing with loneliness was to be alone. Richard Vero thinking, is it all just me? And is in a clinic in Germany, because it's just extraordinary. It is not just you. And the key to all of it is to reach out and just speak to somebody.
Yeah. And I suppose it's a lesson for all of us to know that no matter what we go through, whatever we think, whatever we feel, there's at least one other person out there who's going through it. But the only way you're going to know if that's the case is by talking about it.
Yeah.
Actually let people know what you are going through in order to find that common ground. And if you keep it to yourself, well, that's why you may feel alone.
And the other thing is, and it's become a real theme, excuse me, I do apologise, in recent weeks, is stop catastrophizing. Stop it. 95% of all the stuff at 3 a.m, you think, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, he's going to say this, never happens. It just never happens. It's your mind. It's messing. I'll clean up what I was about to say. It messes with you, and you're catastrophizing.
Yeah,
it won't happen.
Yeah,
unfortunately, you can't just stop it.
No.
But you can talk about it, and as they say, and it's very cliche, a problem shared is a problem halved, or hopefully even more than that.
I always think a problem shared.
But we may have to share it another time, though. That's the only problem.
Run out of time.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.
I'm going to call you that. Thank you so much for coming in, Alex Lichtenfeld.
My pleasure.
As always, Phil Dave, always.
The pressure is all mine.
And James Blake for keeping everything going so well. Thanks to all our other guests. Thanks to Mrs. Blake, Goddess of the Green Room. Thanks to Dennis, head of social media out there as well. I'm Ross Kane. Till we meet again, have fun.